From the foot of the Rockies in Denver, Colorado, here's a program capturing the drama and fun of the golden days of broadcasting. Old Time Radio from the Rockies. Hello, this is Fred Hobbs. I'm speaking to you from the radio studios of RHAC, the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. And we're here to bring you interviews, historical information, book reviews, events, and fun for all on old-time radio, especially related to the Rocky Mountain region because that's where we're located. One of the pleasures of being on this broadcast is to talk to some of the people who are not only experts in old-time radio, but enjoy it so much. And as you probably know, as listeners, there are several genres of old-time radio, and we've explored almost all of them. But one of the most enduring are those related to detective shows and crime shows and that particular genre. And our friend Barrett Benson, who appears with us often in a variety of roles related to old-time radio, is with us now to discuss that genre. When I say that, is there a difference between detective and mystery shows? Are they all kind of in one category?
Well, I think there is a difference. If you're talking detectives, you're talking mainly Private Eyes or the police department, which has Homicide Division with Joe Friday as a detective, or a different type would be an insurance investigator like Johnny Dollar. But in the crime genre type of shows, you could be almost anybody solving a crime. He could be an author. He wouldn't necessarily have to be a true detective. Now, when we talk about detectives, I always think of Private Eyes, Richard Diamond, Sam Spade, Philip Marlowe, and a whole host of ones that appeared on radio.
But there are, as you say, those others with other professions nominally who always stumble into a murder every episode, even though they were had some other job, a day job, so to speak.
It's sort of like Mr. Keene. What did he ever do? But he always was solving cases, but he never arrested
I think he was
anybody.
Unemployed, wasn't he?
I think so. I think he sent him a bill.
But there were people that were in show business and others that were hobbyists and all kinds of people that...
Mystery is my hobby.
Sure, yes, absolutely, like absolutely. Well, what do you think was the appeal of that? Of course, these days on television, we still have a lot of crime shows and somebody solving mysteries and so forth. What's the appeal?
I think the appeal is that you're given a story and you try to figure out who did it, or who the guilty person is, along with the detective, based on the information that is given in the story. Sometimes it's right there and it's obvious from the beginning, and others could have a surprise ending. And thirdly, it just flows right on through until, like Hercule Poirot would use his little gray cells, and he would figure out the whole thing once something came into place. So I think that was the enjoyable part. I know in my work, I patterned a lot of my work. I was worked for EPA, and I had to figure out a lot of things that were happening so we could take criminal action against people. Why did they do it? When did they do it? How did they do it?
And when it comes to plots on these programs, wasn't there a lot of sameness? No matter what kind of a detective there was, or who the leading character was, it seemed like the plots were kind of recycled always through all of those shows, or through many of them.
It becomes quite obvious when you get into the hobby and you have a lot of shows, and you can listen to them when you want to, and all of a sudden, I just heard this show last week on a different network with a different thing. Absolutely, the writers would recycle their shows, maybe change some characters, but you would hear them again, and some people never would get the answer, even if they heard it 2 days in a row.
What about the sidekicks on these shows? They always seem to have a sidekick.
Some had sidekicks.
Or at least somebody who dealt with them on a regular basis, a second character.
Well, yeah, sometimes it'd be their girlfriend, like in Richard Diamond had Helen Asher. Sometimes it would be Effie Perrine on Sam Spade. Other times, Mike Clancy would be helping Mr. Keene.
Or else not helping him.
Or not
by
helping
making
him.
dumb mistakes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But somebody like Johnny Dollar never had anybody helping him until the end when he had Buster Favors, somebody out there, and when he'd go visit these people a second and third time. So sidekicks are more like in Westerns than they are in the detectives. But Joe Friday had Frank Smith and also Ben Yarborough.
Now, in comedies on radio, in juvenile adventures in radio, things got more, if you would use the term maybe, sophisticated as old-time radio moved on into the 1940s and 50s. Was that true of mystery and adventure and detective shows?
To a point. Some of the shows were very well done. Sam Spade especially could be a mediocre script, but it was done so well that it just carried the radio broadcasts. Others were like Crime in Peter Chambers, which with Dane Clark, who was a very fine movie actor, was not a very good series, nor was the Frank Sinatra show. And he was a sort of a detective, or the kind of person that stumbled into something and had to solve a mystery. Those were not enjoyable shows.
What about shows like Gangbusters and Mr. District Attorney, ones like that?
Those were long radio shows, a long time existing. Gangbusters started by Phillips H. Lord back in the 30s, and he even went in to talk to J. Edgar Hoover about running the show, and Hoover wasn't in favor of it, but the Attorney General was, and since Hoover worked for the Attorney General, it became Gangbusters. And that one would always start off with sirens and car chases and a machine gun, and then they would start giving clues. And the announcer, interesting, H. Norman Schwarzkopf was one of the announcers. He was a colonel, and I think it's either the grandfather or father of the general that ran.
Didn't they say, though, that was by proxy?
Sometimes, but
using that name?
No, these were really them. And
okay.
Phillips H. Lord and Schwarzkopf did do the announcing. And then they'd sometimes have a police chief come in and tell his story, and that would be by proxy. That would also be on Calling All the
There was
Cars.
a hint of comedy in many of the shows, too, especially toward the end of the broadcast. Richard Diamond, Private Detective, comes to mind, which, of course, starred Dick Powell, a very famous Hollywood actor for many years. What about that show?
That show was developed specifically for Richard Diamond. He was a movie star, but not a big movie star. And then he made Murder My Sweet, where he played Philip Marlowe. And all of a sudden, his career took off. And so they developed Rogue's Gallery, which he played Richard Rogue, and he played a detective in that. And then Blake Edwards was just starting in radio, and he was tasked with coming up with a show, and it was Richard Diamond, Private Detective, where Richard Diamond was an ex-New York police officer and went into private practice. His girlfriend was a rich debutante named Helen Asher, and that show could be very funny. One of the shows that was on there was some lady was looking for her husband, and it was June Allison, who was his wife, and to tell him they were going to have a baby. And it was a very funny show.
And not only humor, but also just at least a hint of romance and even a little smooching sometimes.
Yeah. At the end of the show, Helen Asher and Richard Diamond get together, and Francis, who also played the desk sergeant, Wilms Herbert, Francis would come in and always interrupt them.
Any final little thought to talk about that show before we move on?
Other than the fact that it was on ABC, CBS, and NBC, and was quite a well-received show. It went over to television, which was nothing like the radio show. And it was David Jansen on TV with Mary Tyler Moore as the secretary. I think her name was Sam. You never saw her, just her legs.
Just her legs, yes. That's famous, yeah.
But that was it. It didn't bear a resemblance to the Dick Powell show.
Well, in a minute, I want to talk about some of, and maybe the favorite show in this genre that you like. But first of all, let's talk about some of the ones that maybe weren't so good. We made a brief mention earlier of shows like as Robin Ray said, Deathstone from the Hearth Squad, Hearthstone from the Death Squad. And a couple of these shows were produced by Frank and Ann Hubbard. And who were they? What were they mainly famous for?
They did all the soap operas and that, and it would always come from their stable of shows. It sort of reflected in their detective stuff.
And they had a factory of writers.
They did. They really did.
So these shows, you say, it came out of a soap opera feeling anyway?
Yeah, mentality, and they wrote them the same way. And it's interesting on Hearthstone of the Death Squad, I've never heard one of the shows. I think there's only 3 in existence, and they were on CBS, I think, in the early 50s. And you think Hearthstone of the Death Squad, what a niche title. And I said, Death Squad, that would be homicide. Yeah. So that's what it is. It's a homicide detective.
And it sounds like you said you've never heard of it. It sounds like you don't want to.
Well, I don't particularly look forward to it, but I would like to hear one someday. Just like there are some shows out there they're in a book and they're there, but you've never heard them.
Are there any other obscure ones or ones that you just really, really didn't like or you thought were dumb or not effective at all?
It's a Crime, Mr. Collins Mandel Kramer was Mr. Collins, and his wife would tell the story, and it was not that well done. At least I didn't think so. And there's a lot of mediocre ones out there, the humdrum plots, and Mr. Keen, to me, was never a great show. I thought Bob and Ray did a much better version of Mr. Trace Keener than most persons. And, of course, the Frank Sinatra series, that was terrible. He could sing a lot better than he could be a detective.
Now, briefly, I want to ask you just about a show that I believe probably you did like, and then I want to go on to ask you the big question of what's your all-time favorite. But the Jack Webb series, I mean, not just Dragnet, but a couple of other series that were very well received.
Well, Jack Webb started in San Francisco, and he did Jeff Reagan, which was really a wisecracking, tough detective. Well done. And when he left that and they wanted to do another one, he came up with Johnny Madero, Pier 21. And there's only one show out there of that, and it's the same type of wisecracking, really good show. And he did a third one where he was the Lion's Eye, and that might have been part of a Jeff Reagan. But then when he did Dragnet, one of the neat things about that, an early crime genre show was Calling All Cars from the 30s, 40s, and it always ended with the dispatcher, Rosenquist. And in one of the early Dragnets, the man that played Perry Mason, Raymond Burr, he was the head of the detectives, and he made mention of, well, go down and tell Rosenquist to get this out. So they would carry things on like that. But Jack Webb was really a great radio person. He did 1 out of 7 out of San Francisco, which was the 7th out of 7 days in a week. One thing was very, very important that week, and he would do a story on it. He was very talented.
And he did Pete Kelly's Blues, which is not a mystery show.
No, that's where Pete Kelly was based in Kansas City with the jazz stuff in the 20s.
Yeah,
I think he made the movie, too.
And one other thing about Jack Webb, too, obviously on Dragnet, as they said, all of these were based on real stories from the files of the Los Angeles Police Department. That also was kind of a new wrinkle, wasn't it?
Yeah, to some point, although Gangbusters was supposed to be from closed FBI cases, none of the open ones. And the Calling All Cars, which I said from the 30s and 40s, those were actual case files that they were discussed.
Now, Barrett, you know thousands and thousands of shows. You've all this fount of knowledge, but there must be one in this type of show that stands out in your mind as your very, very favorite. What would it be?
Favorite show or favorite detective show?
Well, you could choose either one, but why don't we stick with the detectives?
Okay, it's undoubtedly the Howard Duff, Sam Spades. Those were so enjoyable to listen to. I don't care what the script was. Listening to Howard Duff and Lorene Tuttle in that show was incredible. He was trying to follow, or was going to follow, Humphrey Bogart. As it turned out, Humphrey Bogart could not have followed him because they were two different kind of characters. Bogart was a tough, no-nonsense cop, whereas Sam Spade was wisecracking, funny. I remember one show, I was driving along in my car, and they came to the midpoint on it, and he says, well, it's time for a break. He thought there would be more to the show than this, but this is all we can think of. And then they went into the Wild Root commercial, and I almost wrecked the car laughing so hard at that. So that was the kind of stuff that went on that. And then Lorene Tuttle, who played his secretary, Effie Perrine, she could do different voices. And when she got to be an old witch or an old landlady and got into those voices, she just tore up St. Howard Duff to no end. Very funny show. And one of them was, he did one on a book, a Western book, Bumpus Hell. And she kept saying, you can't say that on radio. And he said, yes, I just did. And it was a funny show. And you look forward to him, not because it was an interesting movie. And he always would solve the case, whether the client was dead or not, in his protection. But it was funny, humorous. And the guy, you never heard him driving his car anywhere. I don't think he owned one. I think he took a bus wherever he had to go. And he's always open up when he's going to dictate his report to the police person, Dundee, and he'd include 137596 as a serial number, and then he would dictate to Effie Perrine, and then they would go on with the whole show. And at the end, she would have a comment run from the dictation and type it up, and you'd always hear the clinking of glasses. So he was a hard drinker in that one, too.
Now, nominally, Dashiell Hammett was the creator of the Sam Spade character, but did he actually write these scripts?
Well, some of the very first shows with Howard Duff followed some of his stories, but eventually he distanced himself from the show and had no input to the show at all. And he became on Senator McCarthy's hit list for the Red Menace scare, and was accused of being a communist. And so the companies, the radio stations and sponsors, Wild Root, didn't want anything to do with Dashiell Hammett anymore, and they asked that his name not be mentioned. And then soon after, Howard Duff was let go because he was mentioned in one of the red newspapers.
Was that wrongly done?
Absolutely.
He had nothing to do with Dashiell Hammett, really, did he?
No, he was blackballed, and then they brought in Stephen Dunn.
Wasn't the same show then?
It was not the same show. What a mistake that was. He couldn't begin to follow it, do what Howard Duff did. And we've got some of those shows in the club, too, and they just don't hold up. Howard Duff, to me, was perfect as Sam Spade.
And he had this great voice.
Absolutely great voice. You know, and he was out of work for a while. Then he came back. You start seeing him in the movies again from the 60s and 70s. His early movies weren't all that great. I didn't think. I've seen some of them, and I said I would have never suspected that this guy could be so great on radio.
And wasn't he married to Ida Lupino?
Yes, he was. Yeah, they did have a TV series.
A great actor.
Oh yeah, he became better and better and better. Well, he started in radio in the when he was in the Army, and he would be on AFRS, and he'd be responsible for taking a network show, cutting out all the commercials, and presenting it as an AFRS series.
Now, we've talked enough about this that I think our listeners will have the hint that we're probably going to hear a Sam Spade episode. Anything you can tell us about it before we spin the disc here?
No, I think you should enjoy it, listen to the humor, and say, this was well done.
Is there any particular actor or anything in it that besides the lead actors or a plot that you thought was particularly interesting?
All the actors just fed off Sam Spade, and he carried the show. He narrated the show, basically.
It didn't matter which one it was, they were all great.
They're all great.
The Adventures of Sam Spade.
The Adventures of Sam Spade, Detective. Brought to you by Wild Root Cream Oil Hair Tonic, the non-alcoholic hair tonic that contains lanolin. Wild Root Cream Oil. Again and again, the choice of men who put good grooming first.
Sam Spade Detective Agency.
It's only me from over the sea.
Oh, Sam, how was it at the beach?
Same as always, foggy.
Did you go in?
Well, I was up to my neck from the first rumble. If you mean did I go in the water, I did.
Was it cold?
I didn't notice. I was too busy landing a corpse.
Oh, Oh, Sam, what a coincidence. I was just reading my new library book.
Yeah?
And it's all about a body in the water, pushed over a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the strangest girl in it with a strange mother.
Figures.
And she drinks, the girl, and runs away with a chauffeur. They're rich people.
They can't do that. They're stealing my material.
Oh, no, Sam, no. It's by Owen Fitzstephen. He's very well thought of. Mother always understands his plot.
Not tonight, she won't. Stay where you are, Angel. I'll be right down to dictate my report on the critical author caper.
Dashiell Hammett, America's leading detective fiction writer and creator of Sam Spade, the hard-boiled private eye, and William Spear, radio's outstanding producer-director of mystery and crime drama, join their talents to make your hair stand on end with the adventures of Sam Spade. Presented by the makers of Wild Root Cream Oil for the hair. You know as well as I do, fellas, your hair is one of the first things any gal notices. It's really important to keep your hair spruced up right all the time. The answer? Why, of course, Wild Root Cream Oil Hair Tonic. Wild Root Cream Oil grooms your hair neatly and naturally, relieves dryness, and removes loose, ugly dandruff. I have a hunch, fellas, she'll help herself to another look if you're using Wild Root. Get Wild Root Cream Oil Hair Tonic in bottles or the handy new tube. It's again and again the choice of men who put good grooming first. Later in this program, we'll have an important announcement. Listen for it. And now, with Howard Duff starring as Spade, Wild Root brings to the air the greatest private detective of them all in the adventures of Sam Spade.
I'm looking over
Oh.
the phone.
Oh, Sam.
Yeah, come on in. Let's get this over with.
Can you wait till I finish this chapter?
Hmm?
Just a page to go. The detective had just found this girl in a sordid rooming house.
Mm-hmm.
He had this fight with her boyfriend and boinged him.
Boinged him?
And now butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. But I don't trust her.
What's the name of the book?
Morgue Fruit.
Morgue Fruit.
His last was a spindly stiff.
Mhm.
That was about this neurotic nurse who was in love with her employer.
Effie,
And
how
she
long
got
have you been reading this kind of trash?
What's not trash, Sam? Oh, he really makes his characters live.
Mm.
And I love his detective. He's real hard-boiled, like in Dashiell Hammett.
Hashel, damn it. Mark your place and come in.
All right, Sam.
Oh, dear. Ready?
Yes, Sam. Oh, I can hardly wait.
That's the way I like you, eager.
To finish the chapter, I mean.
Please.
I wonder what she's up to. She's guilty, of course.
Of course, but what of?
You can read it when I'm finished. Oh, my goodness, we've got a report to get out, and here we are chattering about books. Date, August?
I will give the date.
Yes, Sam.
Date? Fill it in. To Missing Persons Bureau, San Francisco Police. Attention, Sergeant Schwartz from Samuel Spade, license number 127596. Subject, Gabriel Leggett. Dear Dave, I should have handed it over to you at the start, but you know me, I'm greedy. I cashed the check she'd sent me as a retainer without consulting my better judgment. Gave the money to Effie to pay bills without batting an eye. Borrowed a dime car fare from the corner newsboy without collateral. And arrived in front of the Leggett Mansion on Nob Hill without the foggiest notion of what I had been retained for.
I'm Gertrude Leggett, Mr. Spade. It's about my stepdaughter, Gabrielle. She's been missing since the funeral.
Whose funeral was that, Mrs. Leggett?
My husband, Gabrielle's father. That was nearly 3 weeks ago. She came to me afterwards and said she was going down to Quesada, to our country place, for a few days. That she wanted to be alone with her grief. But I discovered that she never arrived at Quesada. Do I make myself clear, Mr. Spade?
Yeah, except for one thing. Why do you want her back?
First, she may do something to disgrace me. She'll undoubtedly try her best to do so. Secondly, unless I get her signature to some papers, in accordance with her father's will, I can't go on living in this house. Furthermore...
That's okay. You've convinced me. Now, when she left, what did she take with her?
Just one piece of light luggage, and her liquor case, of course. She drinks, you know. Oh, it's not my place to disapprove. I merely thought it might help you to know.
Well, we could case all the bars in town, but it'd take a lot of time and a lot of money. Besides, I'm on the wagon.
Well, you might talk to Eric, my chauffeur. He drove her to the station, or says he did.
Where do I find him?
Let's see. 10 o'clock. He'll be loitering down the hall somewhere in the neighborhood of the linen closet, helping the upstairs maid fold the sheets. I'd knock first if I were you and avoid embarrassment.
Thanks for the tip. Oh, mind if I have a look at your stepdaughter's room?
Eric will give you the key. I'm not allowed one.
Figures. Ahem.
Oh, excuse me, sir. Thank you for your kind assistance, Mr. Collins.
Okay, Myrtle. Anytime. And yes, sir.
You Eric?
Collinson, what can I do for you?
I'd like the key to Miss Gabrielle's room.
You the law?
Why? You expecting some?
The old lady's been threatening to yell cop.
She decided to whisper instead.
Oh, Private Dick.
You catch on fast, lover boy.
Okay, I'll let you in her room. Come on.
Mrs. Leggett says you drove Gabrielle to the station.
She says that, does she?
Isn't that what you told her?
I'm not telling you what I told anyone.
Suit yourself.
After you.
Mm-mm.
What's eating you?
Nothing at all. Just want some privacy.
Oh, now, wait a minute. I'm responsible.
Go help Myrtle. Give me those keys.
Oh, listen, you keep...
Blow.
Hey, let me in. They'll have your life.
Her room was, shall we say, untidy. The mirrored dressing table was chipped around the edges, and ranged helter-skelter across it between two polo pony bookends was a mess of books. 3 odd volumes of the Harvard 5-foot shelf, a horse breeder's gazette, and a bunch of detective novels. I picked one up and opened it to the title page. It was called Morgue Fruit, and it was by Owen Fitzstephen, author of The Corpulent Cadaver, The Spindly Stiff, and The Kiss-Off. It was autographed to the author's great and good friend, the late Edgar Leggett. The signature looked familiar, but it didn't look like a lead. Neither did anything else in the room. I started to unlock the door with the key on the ring I'd grabbed away from Eric, and the light caught the smooth side of a Christopher medal. It was engraved for Eric, forever, Gabby. When Forever Eric went off duty that night, he went across town. The trail ended at a crummy, broken-down rooming house out in the Fillmore. He let himself in with a key and climbed the stairs. I waited until he was out of sight. In more time than it takes to tell, the door cracked open and a nose that could only belong to a landlady razored out at me. She was gumming a sen-sen.
What you want?
They get settled in all right?
They ain't nobody settling in on me.
Never touched me. You got me wrong, Mom. I meant the newlyweds. Did they raise the rent money all right?
Oh, them. Raised it and spent it. He's a Dick Smither.
Dick Smither.
Slops it up all day and throws the dead soldiers out the window. And they call it a honeymoon. Who are you?
I'm her ex-husband, darling. I came to pay her the back alimony I owe her.
Well, give it to me. I'll see she gets it.
Oh, no, you don't.
No, now, don't you come pushing in here.
Quiet.
It's after hours. Don't allow callers in here after 10 o'clock. House rule.
Shut up.
Well, I don't.
What's their room number? Now, give it to me or I'll shake it out of you, darling.
212.
212.
And if it weren't for these new uppers, I'd let you try it.
Oh, is that what those are? Thank you, Grand Duchess Marie.
Smart Alec. No wonder you can't hang on to a woman.
You're so right.
You drove her to drink.
I did not.
Alimony's still good for you, young whippersnapper.
Who is it?
Western Union.
All right, let me... I told you to stay away. Now beat it.
Eric, what is it?
Look, Eric, I don't want any trouble, but I'm coming in.
Over my dead body.
Eric?
Get back in the room, Gabby. Now, look, I won't let you hurt her, so...
Now,
so
look,
help...
Collinson, don't
No,
make
no,
me do it. I
get
don't
wise.
want to. Okay, I'm sorry.
Eric! What have you done to him?
Nothing a bucket of cold water can't cure. Sit down. I want to talk to you.
Who are you?
Sam Spade. I'm a private detective. Your stepmother hired me to find you.
Oh? You know why she wants to find me?
Do you?
She wants to kill me. She killed my father, now she'll kill me.
Can you prove that?
My father never had a day's illness in his life. He could drink 3 quarts of brandy in any evening. Do you believe a man like that could die of heart failure?
Frankly, I could.
Now she's starting the same kind of talk about me. She wants to railroad me to the insane asylum. Do I seem crazy to you?
No. A little nervous, maybe. This idea you have about your father's death. Talk some more, will you?
All right. I'll tell you the whole thing. But I gotta have a drink first. Hey, I can't get the top off. Give me a hand, will you?
Sure. You need a corkscrew for this one.
Yeah, I think there's one there in the cupboard.
I don't see one.
Back in the corner. A little farther. There.
No, there's nothing. Hey! Oh! I dreamed I was a character in a detective story. The title of the story was Morgue Fruit, and the author, a man named Fitzstephen, was trying to figure out a way to turn me into a red herring before knocking off his number one suspect. I tried to tell him it's against the rules to make your detective a red herring, but he said it was a new kind of murder yarn, and it didn't matter anyway because there wasn't even a victim. That's what he thought.
The makers of Wild Root Cream Oil are presenting the weekly Sunday adventure of Dashiell Hammett's famous private detective, Sam Spade. Now, here's important news on good grooming. If you want the well-groomed look that helps you get ahead socially and on the job, listen. Recently, thousands of people from coast to coast who bought Wild Root Cream Oil for the first time were asked, how does Wild Root Cream Oil compare with the hair tonic you previously used? The results were amazing. Better than 4 out of 5 who replied said they preferred Wild Root Cream Oil. Remember, non-alcoholic Wild Root Cream Oil contains lanolin. And here's the announcement we promised you. Now you can get Wild Root Cream Oil, America's leading hair tonic, in a generous new 25-cent size on sale at all drug and toilet goods counters. It's also available in larger economy bottles and the handy new tube. Get Wild Root Cream Oil again and again, the choice of men who put good grooming first. By the way, smart girls use Wild Root Cream Oil, too, and mothers say it's grand for training children's hair. And now, back to the critical author caper. Tonight's adventure with Sam Spade.
When I came to, it had came the dawn, and I was still a character in a detective story, and I felt more like a red herring than I had in my dream. I had dragged myself across my own trail and wound up no place. My quarry had fled, leaving nothing behind but empty bottles with fingerprints on them. I lifted the few and hustled over to the Bureau of Identification. Half an hour later, I got the report. They were mine. All mine. I wondered what a detective novelist would make of that. I decided to find out. I had met Owen Fitzstephen several years back in Seattle when I was digging dirt on a chain of fake mediums. He was plowing the same field for literary material, and we pooled forces. I got more out of the combination than he did since he knew the spook racket inside out. I cleaned up my job in a couple of weeks, and we parted friends. His San Francisco apartment was on the 6th floor of the St. Mark. He was standing at its door, holding out a lean hand to greet me when I got there.
Well, you're looking fit, Sam. Little red in the face.
Yes, the red herring I ate last night. How's the literary grift go?
You haven't been reading me?
No, where'd you get that funny idea?
Oh, there was something in your tone, as in the voice of one who has bought an author for a couple of dollars. I suppose you're still hounding the unfortunate evildoer?
Yeah, that's how I happened to look you up. You autographed a book for Edgar Leggett.
Oh, yes. Morgue Fruit. Distressingly prophetic.
What do you know about that family?
Oh, what have they been up to now?
How well you know the girl, Gabrielle?
Quite well, since she's a duplicate of her father. She has brains, but there's something black in her. Something she doesn't want to think about but can't forget. She's a neurotic who keeps her body sensitive and ready. I don't know what for. While she drugs her mind with drink and lunatic notions. Yet she's cold and she's sane. If I had something I wanted to forget, I'd anesthetize my mind directly, leave my body stay strong and ready.
I hope you don't think any of this stuff means anything to me.
Oh, yes. I remember you now. You were always like that. Tell me what's up while I try to find one-syllable words for you.
You know the fella that drives for him?
Eric?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was released from Folsom in Leggett's custody when he was 18 years old. Murdered his father. Nice kid. What about him?
Mrs. Leggett hired me to find Gabrielle. I found her with Eric in a rooming house out in the Fillmore. She begged me to save her from her stepmother's murderous schemes, then she knocked me cold.
Well, that's trivial, dull. I've been thinking of the Leggett family in terms of Dumas, and you bring me a piece of Jim Crackery out of O. Henry. While we're writing this, Gabrielle would kill her stepmother, or dupe Eric into doing it for her. No, that won't do. Not sufficient motive. Murder has to have a motive, you know.
Why? She's insane, isn't she?
I wonder. Are you saying that carelessly, or do you really think she's off?
Well, I don't know. She's got a kind of a wild look about her. Her eyes shift from green to brown and back without ever settling on one color. How much have you turned up on her in your snooping around, Owen?
Are you who make your living snooping, sneering at my curiosity about people and my attempts to satisfy it?
No, we're different, Owen. I do mine with the object of putting people in jail, and I get paid for it, though not as much as I should.
Well, I do mine with the object of putting people in books, and I get paid for it, though not as much as I should.
Yeah, but what good does that do?
Well, what good does putting them in jail do?
Well, relieves congestion. You put enough people in jail, and cities wouldn't have any traffic problems, n'est-ce pas?
Well, then all you have to do is to wait till one of them kills the other and put the survivor in jail. It's simple.
Yeah, but who's going to kill who?
Perhaps they both have plans, both Gabrielle and her stepmother. Looks as if you'd have to guard both of them.
I think I'll settle for my client. As far as Gabrielle's concerned, her husband ought to be able to watch out for her.
Her what?
Husband? She and Eric got married.
Well, now, there you are. You didn't tell me anything about that. Lord knows how much else there is you haven't told me. Pardon me. Don't go away.
Telegram. Sign here.
Oh, thank you. There you are. Thank you, sir. Now, I wonder what... Good Lord, this is positively corny. Listen to this, Spade. I appeal to you as a friend of my dead husband. Come immediately, Sunset Hotel, Quesada. Trouble, danger. Do not communicate. Gabrielle must not know. Signed, Gertrude Leggett. Spade.
Yeah?
Did you have this wire sent to me as a prank?
I was just going to ask you if you sent it to yourself as a prank.
I have it.
Hmm?
The key to the whole thing. It's a red herring.
I didn't think Fitzstephen would be able to hold out very long against his professional curiosity, and I didn't imagine he thought I would. I caught the next bus for Quesada. Quesada is a one-hotel town pasted on the rocky side of a young mountain that slopes into the Pacific Ocean some 80 miles from San Francisco. I got there at 11-something that night, stepped down from the bus, and crossed the street to the Sunset Hotel.
All right. Keep your shirt on.
Mrs. Leggett registered here?
What's your name?
Owen Fitzstephen.
Oh, she left a message for you. Said for you to wait right here and don't leave till she gets back.
Yeah, she say where she was going?
Oh, it's probably over visiting with her daughter and new son-in-law, over to the cove.
How do you get there?
Well, you'll never be able to find it at night unless you went all the way around by the East Road.
Yeah.
Then, I'm sure, unless you knew the country.
Well, how do you get there in the daytime?
Well, you go down this street. You take the fork on the ocean side there and follow that up along the cliff. It's easily enough found in the daytime, but you never in the world. You won't be able to find it at night.
Okay. Heard you the first time. So I waited until morning. Stupid me. I found the road out to the point, but it had never really been a road. The side of the ledge became steeper and steeper until the path was simply a narrow shelf on the face of the cliff. The cliff that sheared off 150 feet or more to ravel out into the ocean. A breeze from the general direction of China was pushing fog over the top of the cliff, making a noisy lather of seawater at the bottom. Rounding a corner where it was steepest, I chucked my cigarette over the edge and watched it spin downwards. And that's when I saw it. I had to go waist deep into the Pacific to lift the body. I got my hands under the armpits, found solid ground for my feet, and dragged it up beyond the high tide mark. It was Gertrude Leggett. Somebody came staggering down the beach to meet us.
She dead?
Yeah, Gabrielle, she's dead.
Oh, the witch is dead. Hey, take me back to town, will you? Buy me a drink, huh?
Sit down there. Sit down.
What's the big idea? Don't you know I'm sick?
Somehow I don't think you're that sick. I think you could make some sense.
Sense? That's a laugh. You don't know me. I've never been able to think clearly the way other people do. No matter what I try to think about, there's a fog that tries to get between me and it. You understand how horrible I can become? Going through life like
Nuts.
that?
Nobody thinks clearly, no matter what they pretend. Thinking's a dizzy business. A matter of catching as many of those foggy glimpses as you can and fitting them together the best you can. Trouble with you is you've been enjoying your misery. You've been so busy trying to prove that you're nuts, it's a wonder you haven't really driven yourself nuts.
How do you know I haven't?
Because you're too anxious to admit it.
All right, I'm sane if you want it that way. I'm just evil. There's something black inside me.
What was that again?
Something black. Everybody knows that about my family. My father, too.
Who told you that?
I always knew it. They say my real mother killed herself. But I know better. I know how to open the drawer where she keeps the gun. Every day, Gertrude lies on Mother's bed, and we play Killing the Witch.
Yeah?
And she comes in the nights and bends over my crib. And she's changed herself, so she looks like Mother instead of the witch. But I know better, and I hold up the gun with both hands. It's very hard to pull with both hands. It's very hard to pull the trigger. But I must do it or the witch will eat me up. And then there's a big noise and red all over. And I can't get out. I can't get out.
Now listen to me. You were beginning to make some sense. Now don't run away from it. Gertrude was lying on your mother's bed. That's your stepmother?
Yeah. She was my nurse. She married Father.
Not so fast. How old were you when your mother died?
4. 4.5.
Did your father know about the game with the gun?
No, I don't think so.
Did anybody?
Gertrude said I must never tell anyone, because they'd send me away. And I never did. Not till I grew up. I was with Owen Fitzstephen.
Yeah.
I had a lot to drink. I told him. After that, he began seeing Gertrude. Then finally, my father died. But it didn't do her any good, because Owen really loved me.
Now, watch it. Now, let's get this straight. You'll have to straighten it out again later on with a doctor to help you. This is to help me. When you were a little child, Gertrude taught you that killing the witch game to use you as a murder weapon against your mother. Then she filled you full of ideas of guilt and fear so you'd keep quiet about it. When you told the story to Owen, he blackmailed your stepmother into knocking off your father. That made you feel responsible for his death, too, so you ran away.
Now, Gertrude's dead. I killed her, too.
You might, but I doubt it. Now, try and remember. Was Owen up here tonight?
I thought I heard his voice. But I hear voices sometimes. I'm hearing it again. Listen. Do you hear anything?
I didn't hear anything but the wind and the beat of the surf at first. But when I did hear the voice, I sent Gabby for a doctor before I investigated. He was pretty badly mangled in the rocks. He'd fallen nearly as far as he'd pushed Gertrude, but was still alive. I made him as comfortable as I could, and finally he opened his eyes.
Hello, Sam.
You messed yourself up good.
Yeah. No more rocks for me.
Not unless you make Alcatraz.
You know, I had half an idea when you came to see me in San Francisco that you were secretly nursing some exceptional, idiotic theory.
Thanks, Owen, but I never had any theory. The whole thing dropped into my lap.
Don't be too sure of that. Understand, at present, I admit nothing. Later on, if I'm forced to, the very number of my crimes will be to my advantage. On the theory that nobody but a lunatic could have committed so many.
Oh, there's not so many. Only Gertrude, your co-author of the murder of the late Edgar Leggett.
Nonsense. Crimes and crimes dating from the cradle. Even literature shall help me.
Not your own books.
Why not? Didn't the critics agree that the spindly stiff bore all the marks of authorial degeneracy? Evidence, son, to save my sweet neck. And I shall wave my mangled body at them. A ruin whose crimes and high heaven have surely brought sufficient punishment upon it.
Yeah, you'll probably make a go of it. Legally, you're entitled to beat the jump if ever anybody was.
Legally? You mean insane? Tell me the truth, Sam. Am I?
I think that's what they'll say.
But that spoils everything. It's no fun if I'm really cracked. No fun at all.
it and a report.
Well, it just goes to show, doesn't it?
Oh, there you go again, Effie.
I mean, if anything like that happened in real life, you wouldn't believe it.
You mean if anything like that happened in fiction?
Oh, no. The author is never the guilty party.
Well, this author was.
But that's not fair. The author is never supposed to be guilty of...
You're right. You're right, Effie.
He shouldn't be even a suspect. Maybe a red herring, but...
Type that up, Effie.
Oh, all right, Sam. Anything else, Sam?
Yeah, phone the drugstore and order some red herring. I mean, some aspirin.
More and more folks are turning to famous Wild Root Cream Oil every day. Wild Root Cream Oil gives you all you ever dreamed of in a hair tonic. It grooms your hair neatly and naturally the way you like it, the way other people like it. What's more, Wild Root Cream Oil relieves dryness and removes loose, ugly dandruff. So join the millions with handsome hair. Tonight, or first thing tomorrow, ask at your drug or toilet goods counter for Wild Root Cream Oil. Also, ask your barber for a professional application. If you've never tried it before, get the generous new 25-cent bottle just introduced. It's Wild Root Cream Oil's Get Acquainted size, and once you've made the acquaintance of Wild Root Cream Oil, you'll find you've made a lifelong friend.
Come on in, Twinkletoes.
Well, here it is, Sam. And I liked it even better than morgue fruit.
You did.
I mean, it's not so realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I like a romantic type story myself.
You
Lots
do.
of atmosphere and psychology in those.
Oh, you've got to have those.
You really should be a writer, Sam.
You think so?
Of course, detective stories don't pay much.
Oh, that's
But
true.
if you write enough of them, and look at all the material you've got.
No good. Never do for fiction.
But, Sam, there's already that radio series, The Adventures of You-Know-Who, Sunday night.
That's what I mean. I don't make a penny out of it.
Well, it's your own fault. Sam, I don't want to seem critical, but if you played your cards right, you could have owned a piece of that show.
What? And follow Blondie? Go home, Effie.
I think I will, Sam, and just curl up with a good book.
All right.
I wonder who killed who.
Well, when you find out, don't let me know.
Oh, you know you can't wait.
No, yes, I can.
Good night, Sam.
Good night, sweetheart.
The Adventures of Sam Spade, Dashiell Hammett's famous private detective, are produced and directed by William Spear. Sam Spade is played by Howard Duff. Lorene Tuttle is Effie. The Adventures of Sam Spade are written for radio by Bob Tallman and Gil Dowd. Musical direction is by Lud Gluskin, with score composed by Renee Garrigang. Join us again next Sunday when author Dashiell Hammett and producer William Spear join forces for another adventure with Sam Spade, brought to you by Wild Root Cream Oil. Again and again, the choice of men who put good grooming first. This is Dick Joy reminding you to
get Wild Root Cream Oil, Charlie. It keeps your hair in trim. You see, it's non-alcoholic, Charlie. It's made with soothing lanolin. You better get Wild Root Cream Oil, Charlie. Start using it today. You'll find that you will have a tough time, Charlie, keeping all the gals away. Hiya, Baldy. Get Wild Root right away.
This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
The Adventures of Sam Spade, starring Howard Duff. Well, we heard Barrett Benson from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado before we played this episode, the one you just heard. But now let's hear from another RHAC stalwart, Bill McCracken, with some more interesting aspects of Sam Spade and the whole saga, including Howard Duff. One of the things that you pointed out before we played the thing here privately, before we actually started the broadcast, was this particular show had a couple of interesting things that happened that weren't scheduled to happen.
Well, if you notice, a couple minutes into the program, Lorene Tuttle messed up on the name of Dashiell Hammett, and it came out Heschel Dammit. And this was live radio. It was not on tape, so what you hear is what went out over the airwaves. And also, it should be pointed out that she played another role, an old lady, in the program midway through. So you can see the versatility of Lorene Tuttle, in addition to how great Howard Duff is on this program.
As far as the breaking up of it, also Howard Duff reacted to that little fluff, too, didn't he?
Well, he's always one to encourage things to happen, yes.
And there was kind of a chuckle in his voice, a change in the tone of his voice briefly when he heard her say that.
And I think when the two of them were playing the scene together with her as an old lady, you could tell there, too. It was still lingering.
And that unfortunate juxtaposition of words was particularly funny in those days, wasn't it?
Well,
to say that word on the air.
It wasn't normal for that to appear over the airwaves in the 1940s.
Exactly.
This program was from August of 1948, which was a couple of years into the run of Sam Spade. It had started in 1946 and ran into the fall of 1950 with Howard Duff, and then the ill-fated half-season with Stephen Dunn finished off the series in early 1951.
And you heard, if you were listening earlier, listeners, that Barrett Benson talking about how he did not like the change in actors on the program.
And I think it's pretty universally agreed with all of us that it was a cut down instead of a cut up.
And oftentimes you get used to somebody in a role that's a recurring role, whether it's radio, television, or even movies, sequels, or that kind of thing. You want that original person.
I mean, how would the Thin Man series have been without William Powell and Myrna Loy?
Well, Bill, anything else about Sam Spade before we wrap it up this time?
Well, Fred, before we go, we ought to again mention the fact that Dick Joy was the announcer on this program, and he's the one doing all the lead-ins to those great Wild Root Cream Oil commercials.
Thank you very much, Bill McCracken from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. Next, let's bring back to the OTR microphone Barrett Benson of the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. Barrett has some information on the latest in the big catalog of OTR shows in the library of RHAC. Barrett?
Fred, this month we're putting in 7 tapes. Leading off will be the new Edgar Bergen Hour, which of course is Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy. And these are from the 1956 run, which was an hour run and at a lot different format than the early Charlie McCarthy, Edgar Bergen shows. We're following that up with a Columbia Workshop. The Columbia Workshop was a radio anthology of intellectual thoughts, and they did some really great stuff, including the 26 by Corwin during the war years. A lot of those are in the club, but these are from the 42 run. And then I have a tape of miscellaneous shows, which include Baby Snooks. We got 2 shows from their half-hour shows from 46. We have 2 Jack Kirkwood shows, which are rare, and he's a very funny man. And then a Orson Welles Black Museum that he did in 1952 over in England on the BBC. And then I have 2 more Father Coughlin episodes. The Radio Priest, who was a friend of FDR until he didn't get a appointment in the administration, and then he went after him on everything and became bitter enemies. Then we have a Beat the Band from the first series of it from 1940, and in the Beat the Band, the host was Gary Moore, and he would ask a question, and either the band would have to play something that would answer the question, or a contestant would have to come up with a tune that answered it. And if the contestant answered it, he got $20. The person that sent it in from the radio audience would get $10 if it was used. And the band members and the singers would be Perry Como and
it was the Ted Weems Band, wasn't it?
Yeah, Ted Weems Band. They would have to throw money, 50 cents into a bass drum, and then whoever had the most points for answering at the end got the money from the bass drum. Then we have a tape I've found in my collection called Honor of the Law from the 1930s. I had forgotten I even had it. It's an old tape, and it's a sort of serialized show, and we have episodes 5 through 22 with a couple missing. And it's got New York actors in it. It's a nice show. And then I have another miscellaneous shows, which comprise of Carnation Contented Hour with the Buddy Clark Dinah Shore series. and then Campbell Playhouse, which was the successor to Mercury Theater on the Air.
With Orson Welles.
With Orson Welles and his group of people. And finally, we have miscellaneous shows, a tribute to Jack Benny by CBS and NBC, an interview with Jim Jordan, who was Fibber McGee and Molly, Hal Perry, Gail Gordon. Then we have 15-minute episodes, or 10-minute episodes, actually, of Boris Karloff Reader's Digest shows, where he would introduce them. It would be a short little show. And then there's rather obscure shows of radio theater, of famous classics. And I have 2 shows on that, and I don't even know the dates on those.
Boy, that's a lot of material, and any one of those people would enjoy, or maybe all of them. And as always, we like to inform people how they can put that in front of their own ear.
Yes, they can go to our website. It's www.rhac.org. That brings you to our catalog, or our page, and we have the membership of $25 initial, $15 for renewals, and you can rent the tapes or CDs from our catalog, which is listed on the page.
Barrett Benson from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. Next time, we switch from that famous detective series, Sam Spade, to the weird world of science fiction on Old Time Radio from the Rockies. And as always, thanks to Bill Bragg and Walden Hughes, who make it possible for Old Time Radio from the Rockies to be heard here on Yesterday USA. Now, this is Fred Hobbs, your online host, saying goodbye and good radio. This is RHAC, the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. From the foot of the Rockies in Denver, Colorado, here's a program capturing the drama and fun of the golden days of broadcasting. Old Time Radio from the Rockies. Hello, this is Fred Hobbs. I'm speaking to you from the radio studios of RHAC, the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. And we're here to bring you interviews, historical information, book reviews, events, and fun for all on old-time radio, especially related to the Rocky Mountain region because that's where we're located. This time, it's just a mystery what we're going to feature on OTR from the Rockies. Well, in fact, 2 mystery programs from the treasure trove of old-time radio. Only one is really well-known, another is fairly obscure. And here's our friend Bill McCracken from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado to tell us about the first of those 2 that we're going to be talking about. What's the title of this series?
Well, this is probably the one that you were describing as obscure. This is called The Weird Circle. These were added actually to our CD library last month, and I thought that what we would do this time is to play one of those shows. The Weird Circle was a syndicated program from the mid-40s, from about 1943, 1945, on its original airing. 2 seasons of 39 shows each, so there's 78 of them out there.
I believe you had said before we went on the air that there weren't any identifiable actors on here or any names that you could mention of prominent radio actors.
I don't believe there are any on here. There were no credits given on this show, as was very common on most syndicated shows of the 30s and 40s, where there were really no credits given.
Do you have any idea what city they were recorded in?
A guess would be New York, but it's only a guess.
What was peculiar then about this particular show? What was different about it?
Well, the title gives you one clue. Weird Circle tells you, well, it's not exactly the straight-up-and-up type shows. Mostly it's a collection of 19th century short story or novel adaptations from well-known mystery writers. Like, for example, there must be 7 or 8 Edgar Allan Poe shows, mostly his short stories that are on this series. Others from the British writer Wilkie Collins. We could name Nathaniel Hawthorne and some of his short stories, and the list goes on through some French authors and British authors in addition to American authors.
Would they be in what we might call the creepy idea?
That's the right word to use, yes.
Is this particular one that we're going to present have any definite connection to anything special?
Well, where we said before that the Weird Circle is obscure, the actual title of the program from that series we were going to run should be instantly recognizable, and that is Frankenstein. But this is not your movie version of Frankenstein.
Not even Young Frankenstein, right?
That's correct. Neither one.
What is unusual about it then? Anything special?
No, I think the listener can just settle back and kind of think what he saw perhaps from the movie. He's not going to hear the same thing from this show at all.
Frankenstein, The Weird Circle.
Listen to the waves. Listen to the bell. Listen to the Weird Circle. Out of the past, phantoms of a world gone by, speak again the immortal tale, Frankenstein.
The wind howling outside my lonely home is my only companion. All else is quiet here, as I sit by my window in the parlor, writing this document for the scientific world. Be warned, you doctors and scientists who come after me. Be warned that man must not experiment with the secrets of life. My experiences started in the University of Manchester, where I was studying natural history. It was after class, May 22nd, 1818, that Professor Waldman, my close dear friend Henry Clerval, and myself were in the laboratory of the university.
Victor Frankenstein, your persistence amazes me. Someday I shall sit at your feet and allow you to teach me.
Thank you, Professor Waldman. But the whole subject of the structure of man has always been too clouded in mysticism.
Well, frankly, Victor, I prefer mysticism.
That's because you're a mystic, Henry.
Why, Henry's no more a mystic than I am. He just loves to avoid arduous work.
Oh, translating that means I'm lazy, eh, Professor?
Well, if you prefer to put it that way, I rather think of you as a student whose nervous structure does not take kindly to natural history.
The professor's kinder to you than you are to yourself, Henry.
Well, if I worked as hard as you do, Victor, I should probably wear that same gaunt, sleepless look that you carry about.
Well, my experiment will be finished tonight, and then I'll manage the 8 hours sleep that other men manage.
The secret experiment will be finished tonight, huh?
Well, then, will you tell us just exactly what you're doing in the basement at home?
I'll tell the entire world. As a matter of fact, I stayed after class this afternoon, Professor Waldman, to ask you to join me this evening in the basement of our place to watch the completion of my work.
Oh, well, how about me?
I don't think I dare invite more than one, Henry. And the professor is more interested in this type of procedure than you are.
I shall be delighted, Victor.
Just the best friend who never knows what's going on in his own home, that's all.
It's not that, Henry. But I thought you'd entertain Elizabeth for me, while the professor and I were at work.
Entertaining Elizabeth will be a delightful favor, old boy. You know, I think you trust me too much with her. Have you ever met Victor's fiancée, Professor Waldman? She's one of the most charming...
Yes, Elizabeth was one of the most charming, beautiful women I'd ever known. I had been in love with her from childhood, but even my love for Elizabeth couldn't dim my passionate zeal for the work I was doing. It was 8 o'clock that evening. Henry, Elizabeth, and I were seated in the parlor, Elizabeth was saying...
I'll be so glad, Victor, darling, when all this is over. If you only knew how tired you look.
The minute my work is done, successfully or unsuccessfully, I promise you, Elizabeth, we'll be married and off to Switzerland before Henry has time to lock up this place.
But first, we find out about the secret in the basement.
Henry's being eaten up by curiosity.
I don't blame him. I'm suffering pangs of what's it all about, too.
Well, you'll both know soon. I wonder where Professor Wallman is. He's late.
He'll be here soon, Victor. Stop pacing the floor, sweetheart.
I think I'll start my work downstairs. Send the professor down when he arrives, will you, darling?
We'll come down ourselves and take a look around. Or will I turn into a pillar of salt for peeking?
Nobody ever turned into a pillar of salt for peeking, Beth. It was for looking back.
Oh, nothing like a good practical working knowledge of the Bible for scientific experiments. It starts the night off right.
Yes, I thought jokingly of that paragraph from the Bible then. And she was turned into a pillar of salt. But what about a man who looks back? There is no ready reference for him or for me. I went downstairs to my laboratory at a little past 8, opened the door, and started to tinker around to pass the time more quickly. My every sense was alive, taut, waiting, with the sense of what was to come. I heard a knock on the side door, which led me from my laboratory directly into the forest, which bordered Manchester. I looked out and...
Good evening, Victor.
Oh, did Elizabeth tell you to come down this way, Professor?
No, I found the entrance to your laboratory quite by myself.
I help you with your coat, sir?
No. You proceed with your work. Nothing like trivialities to annoy a scientist at work. There we are.
Well, follow me, Professor, into the back room, and you'll see for yourself what this is all about.
Well, I feel that I'm in for a most exhilarating evening. I wish I had more students fashioned in your mold, Victor.
Well, Professor, here is my...
Why, what's this? A full-sized replica of a man?
Yes, only he isn't full-sized. He's fashioned on a grander scale. I should say this creature standing up would be approximately 8 feet 2 inches tall.
Well, you should have been an artist, Victor. He's a perfect reproduction. What did you make him out of? Wood? Clay?
Animal flesh.
Flesh?
Feel him.
Oh, feels like the body of a dead man.
Or the body of a man who hasn't as yet been brought to life. This body is complete in every detail. Heart, lungs, teeth. Even the fine nervous system.
Oh, it's interesting. Yes, interesting. How about the brain cells?
Yes, adult brain cells. I think he's quite handsome, don't you?
Well, each man to his own taste. He's the best reproduction of a man I've ever seen, but actually his face is hideous. As a plastic surgeon, my dear Victor, I'm afraid I can't give you much credit. Well, what do you intend to do with this hulk?
You see this fluid here in the test tube?
Yes.
I filled the hypodermic needle with it. And now I'm going to inject the full 8 ounces into the vein, directly above his heart.
But why?
Watch. You see, Professor, quite by accident, I stumbled on the secret of life. I've been bringing small one-cell creatures to life for quite some time.
The secret of life?
Within 30 seconds after this injection, this creature will live.
You're trying to play God, Victor. It's heresy.
It's science. I'm making a new race, by far finer than the present one. Larger in structure, stronger, heavier, healthier. A race able to live on nuts and berries. With a greater capacity for feeling.
Victor, for the love of heaven, don't go through with this experiment. No man living has the right to tamper with the secret of life. You've created a monster on that floor. You've no idea what will happen if you go through with this.
Watch, Professor. The injection.
I only hope and pray this is a failure.
It can't be. His eyes moved. Watch him, Professor. He's like a baby, first realizing life. His hands touch the floor. His eyes are trying to focus on the world around him.
He's hideous.
Yes, he's hideous. I made the skin too much like parchment, I'm afraid.
Victor, get rid of that monster.
Trying to stand up.
If that mind which you've created is a twisted one, have you any idea what kind of horror you've let loose in England? As a humanitarian, I feel it my Christian duty to do this now.
Put that knife down, Professor.
No, I can't let... Oh, he's got me in the clutch of his hand. Command him to stop this, Victor.
Stop fighting him, Professor. He's frightened. He has the same reactions as a child. Grabs and won't let loose.
Let me go, monster.
Stop! Don't go out that door. Put the professor down. Don't go out that door. The monster left my laboratory through the side entrance into the forest, carrying the incredibly mangled body of the professor with him. I rushed out of my laboratory after him, but the creature was faster than I, and he disappeared from view. I returned to my laboratory and destroyed all evidence of the creature's manufacture. I burned the blueprints from which I had made his body. Then, carefully, I locked my laboratory and went upstairs to join Henry Clerval and Elizabeth. I must have looked wild-eyed as I entered the room.
Henry, that's most amusing. You tell the best anecdotes in all of England.
Oh, you flatter me, Elizabeth.
Oh, Victor, you're through sooner than we expected. Darling, what's the matter?
Didn't the professor show up?
Nothing's the matter. My experiment was a failure.
Oh. But the professor...
He never showed up. Beth, Henry, I want to go away.
Of course, darling, we will, as soon as Henry can get the house locked up.
I don't want to wait. I want to leave at once, tonight, please, tonight, Beth. We can get married before we cross the channel and then go to Switzerland.
But it's almost midnight now, darling.
What's the difference? Please, Beth, if you love me.
But why tonight, Victor?
Henry, you've no idea what I've been through. I have to get away at once.
Of course, darling, if you insist. Anything you want.
And we'll be married before daylight. Darling, darling Beth, I know a little minister whom we can awake. And so Beth and I were married that evening in a little chapel on the coast. Then the three of us fled to Bern, Switzerland. I refused to have anything to do with the civilized world. No newspapers, no word of home. Just the peace and quiet of the Swiss mountains. Henry and Elizabeth both tried to learn of the events which had occurred in my laboratory that evening. But I never broke my silence on that subject. After the first tries, they refrained from asking me about it again. It was in the middle of the 4th month of our visit when Henry and I were sitting on the terrace of the little house in the mountain. Beth was out picking berries when Henry suddenly...
Victor, I'm your closest friend. I've tried to keep silent about... Well, Victor, the day after we left England, I bought a newspaper.
Did you, Henry?
Yes, I saw this clipping on the front page. I couldn't very well miss it.
What clipping?
This one. The horribly mangled remains of Professor Waldman was found on Beekman Hill. The identity of the unknown murderer is being sought by Scotland Yard.
Poor Professor Waldman. I'd no idea.
Hadn't you?
No. What are you trying to say to me, Henry?
You're leaving England so suddenly that very night. Your fear of being discovered, the secret experiment. Well, it all seemed to add up to some kind of strange connection with this clipping. Now, if you're in trouble, Victor, you can depend on me. I'll stay by your side.
I'm not in trouble. I'm just tired, terribly tired.
And you know nothing of the professor?
Absolutely nothing.
He didn't come to our chateau that evening.
I told you he didn't then. Stop questioning me. Victor! We're out here, Beth.
Oh, I've just had a horrible experience. Oh, darling, I'm so glad to see you.
You're pale, Beth. Sit down right here next to me.
Why, what happened, Beth?
Well, I was walking in the woods not far from here when I looked up and saw... Well, I saw a man. Sort of a man standing over me.
Well, men aren't so bad. That is, if you happen to know the right ones. And you do.
I'm not joshing, Henry. He wasn't exactly a man. He was twice the height of anyone I've ever seen. And his skin looked like dried parchment. It's incredible, but I think I've seen a monster.
Monster?
Yes, I ran away. He didn't follow me. He just stared after me, watching me. You do believe me, don't you?
A monster stared after
you?
Look,
Henry. Victor, through the trees right out there. Look! There he is again!
Yes, the monster stood there, silhouetted against the trees. The monster which I had created, standing like an evil glut of flesh and bone, moved in the darkening twilight. And then suddenly, phantom-like, it disappeared. Beth and Henry both watched me as I started from the piazza after the disappearing creature in the backwoods. As I drew near to the heavily wooded section, giant footprints in the soft mud about me showed the path ahead. The sun was sinking in the west, and the last orange pinpoints of light needled my flesh until every sense within me was tingling with the expectations of seeing my living horror. Then I realized I was unarmed. Every crooked tree, each twisted branch which obstructed my path, appeared to be his form. I heard the crackling of a branch and the moving of a form on the velvet moss.
I thought you'd come, Creator.
You.
Are you frightened, Creator?
You dare talk to me?
Please, don't turn away from me. Please.
Let me go.
I mean no harm to you. Listen to me, Victor Frankenstein. You must listen to me. You created me. You owe me that much.
I owe you nothing, murderer.
Why am I a murderer? Because you created a form so horrible, a face so distorted, that no man can look upon me and call me friend. I'm an outcast. You can save me.
Let me go.
Not until you hear my story. Sit down, Creator.
My arm! Let me go!
I wandered through the streets of London that first day. Children screamed in the streets. People flocked together trying to kill me. And I was lonely and hungry.
How did you follow me here?
Not so long ago, I returned to my birthplace, the laboratory, broke in and discovered your identity. But first, I fled to Scotland and lived outside of a cottage. That's how I learned to speak. An old blind man was teaching a young French girl to speak English. I listened to the lessons from the open windows.
Now, what do you expect of me?
A companion. A woman of the same species, with my defects. One who will be my friend. This being you must create.
No, I'll not do it.
You must. Every man's entitled to a wife.
No.
You must. If you create her for me, I'll take her with me into the far wastes, and no one will ever see either of us again. Ever.
How will you live?
On fruits and berries. We'll manage together. Please, you can't deny me this.
A maid. A monster's maid.
You will? You will. I swear I'll never harm another human, never create her, if you'll only grant me just one companion.
And if I refuse?
If you refuse, even a brain that you have made, Creator, might become twisted and distorted.
And so that night in the forest, I made a devil's bargain. I bargained to create a monster's mate, perhaps another murderer. How could I know? The monster swore to live in the forest and wait a year or 2 years if necessary, and upon completion of my work, he would take his companion away. But if I broke my promise, he swore revenge. And so I started work. I searched Paris for the necessary equipment, built a shack in the woods about a mile away from our chalet. 3 months I worked, 3 solid months, shaping her who was to be his mate. And then one night, it was windy outside. I thought the wind had blown the door open when...
Victor, I'm sorry I had to disturb you.
Is it Beth?
No, not Beth. She's fine and sends her love. It's the townspeople. Your activities have stirred up a lot of curiosity.
Oh, the fools!
Well, I can't blame them, especially after the rumors which have been going around. Rumors of the... Victor, you know of the monster in these forests. You've known of him all along. People have seen him and connect him with you. Mothers in the village are frightened of their children.
I know nothing.
Look, I'm only trying to help you.
I know nothing, I tell you.
But the men have banded together. They're going to make a raid on you here, to burn your laboratory down, and to find the monster who lives in these woods.
They can't. They mustn't.
Oh, what devil's work are you carrying on, man? I'm trying to help you. Oh, Victor, will you please let your friends be your friends?
Henry, go back to Beth and leave me alone.
Beth is safe at home. You're in danger, and I won't leave your side this night, my friend.
Then be prepared.
Prepared for what?
You've guessed many of the reasons for my secrecy.
Then there is a monster.
At school, I stumbled on the secret of life. I was trying to create a superior race. I was a fool, and I created him instead.
And he does live?
Yes, he lives.
Professor Waldman. What happened to Professor Waldman?
The night I created the monster, Waldman became frightened. He screamed, attempted to kill the creature. The creature, like a child, warded him off and then tore him to pieces in front of me. I couldn't stop him. The monster had killed before it had really begun to live.
Then what?
The monster left the basement through the side entrance, carrying the professor's corpse. I had no choice. I had to leave the country.
Oh, what are you doing with that creature now?
Fulfilling a promise. Follow me into my cabin and I'll show you. How soon do you think the townsfolk will be here?
Oh, within 2 hours or so. They're meeting in the square in town.
Come in.
What? A woman?
Yes, a woman. The monster's mate, his friend. I promised him a friend, and in return he swears to hide himself forever from the world.
A devil's bargain, Victor.
A bargain I must keep for all our sakes.
But the monster proved himself a murderer time and time again. Why, in London, after the death of Professor Waldman.
Time and time again.
But how do you know that the mate won't be even more vicious than he? You'll let loose an avalanche of hatred. Oh, destroy her before you bring her to life.
Yes, avalanche of hatred.
Look, you've no time to waste. Set fire to this cabin quickly, Victor. Set fire to the cabin and come away. Why, man alive, you can't go through with this thing.
But the promise.
It's a promise to a fiend. He'll be your death and ours, Victor. Oh, hurry, man, hurry, if you've any love for Beth.
I've been insane with grief and fear for Beth and you. Go back to Beth, Henry, at once and wait for me.
And you?
I'll set fire to the cabin as soon as I destroy my books. I'll join you later.
Well, hurry, friend. We'll meet you home as soon as you can make it.
For 1 full hour, I worked feverishly. I soaked the shack in oil, and then taking a taper from the vase, I lit the fire. The fire started quickly. I placed my books in the very center of the room, and then opened the door of my shack. The experiment was at an end, and I felt free. The monster's mate would never live. I walked out, and then I saw him, his face contorted with rage.
Ah! My wife! My only chance to have a friend! Ah! My only chance!
I knew then what was in his mind as he raced through the forest in front of me. The blazing shack was a beacon of light, and I saw his huge, misshapen form outdistance me, far outdistance me. He was faster than I, taller than I, and covered more territory. Racing, running blindly through the forest, I reached my home. The door of my home was flung open. Henry, mutilated and torn, stumbled blindly toward me.
Victor, the monster.
Henry, what?
I tried to, Victor.
Henry, you.
Beth, no. Upstairs.
Beth, I'm coming, darling, I'm coming. I'm coming upstairs. I'm coming, darling, I'm coming. If you kill her, Beth! Beth, oh, my darling. My darling. Oh, Beth, no. No. Both you and Henry. Both dead.
You too are alone, Creator.
Yes. Both of them were dead. All my dear ones gone from me now. And I'm alone. The wind howling outside my window is my only companion. All else is quiet as I sit by my window, writing this document. I am dying of loneliness and fear, shunned by the world, hated by everyone. I know I am waiting only for the monster's return, and he, having eluded the world, will return when I've suffered my full share of misery, as he has suffered his.
From the time-worn pages of the past, we have brought you the story, Frankenstein. Bellkeeper, toll the bell.
The old-time radio show Weird Circle and the radio adaptation of the well-known Frankenstein. Well, our friend from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado, Bill McCracken, is still here. And Bill, you mentioned that there's a nice resource for researchers or people who want to know information about programs like the Weird Circle. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I think we're entitled to give somebody else a plug as to what goes on. But there is a gentleman named Dave Golden who has been in old-time radio for decades. And he has a really wonderful website, which is identified as radiogoldindex.com, where he lists something like 90,000 programs with generally specifications as to who was in a show, who produced it, who directed it, and a little bit about the show. And I just thought I'd share with a listener the fact that for this series, for the Weird Circle, he normally comes up with a one-sentence description of what the program is, but every once in a while he'll editorialize. And for one of these particular shows, which we won't identify, his description consisted of 4 words: rotten script, acting likewise.
Why don't we identify it?
Well,
you don't want to be sued?
It's not that. It's just that we don't want the listener to directly avoid a particular program.
Yes, and they might disagree with this guy's interpretation as well.
I did listen to the show after reading this, and right. I have to agree.
He was right. Okay.
Right.
Coming up on our program, Barrett Benson is going to be with us, who appears often to tell us about things about old-time radio. And we're going to talk about that other mystery show that we mentioned at the beginning of the program this time. And it's much more well-known than the Weird Circle. You'll know right away it's ILAM, ILAM. If you don't know what that is, you'll find out in a moment. then next, Barrett Benson, who joins us periodically, back for an encore to talk about the next feature on Old Time Radio from the Rockies, and also the man who created it, I Love a Mystery, and its creator, Carlton E. Morse. Barrett, let's start first with Carlton E. Morse. He was known for other shows, and we've talked about them. Just briefly remind our listeners what else he did before we delve in more detail into I Love a Mystery.
Well, he actually started in the late 20s. He was a newspaper writer, and his wife had heard that there were auditioning for writers on a radio in San Francisco, so he went down and got a job, and he started writing particular episodes for the radio, because in early days of radio, they were plays instead of that were adapted to the radio. So he started One Man's Family, which was a very long-running show. He also did I Love a Mystery, I Love Adventure, and Adventures by Morse are the more popular ones he did.
Let's talk then specifically about I Love a Mystery. And by the way, just as an aside, we have talked about and played a selection from the collection of old One Man's Family shows at one time, so we don't need to dwell on that, and that makes you happy, as I understand it. You're not a huge fan of that.
The interesting thing about One Man's Family is he did not like it be called a soap opera, mainly because he thought soap operas were false pretenses and everything. He always built everything around the characters. So he already knew all his characters in One Man's Family. And so he would built on them to do the story, not the other way around where they had the story and they brought in actors.
And much of that was part of his life, too.
Oh, it really was.
Came from his background.
Yes.
His life. Okay. Well, now, I Love a Mystery. One of the things about it is that there were two casts for I Love a Mystery over the years, one based in Los Angeles or Hollywood and the other in New York. Why was that?
Well, when he was doing One Man's Family, about 7 years into it, the network asked him, could he write a mystery series? And he thought, yes, I can. I'll use my same actors because I know their characters. So he started I Love a Mystery on the West Coast out of San Francisco before it moved down to Los Angeles. And it starred Michael Raffetto and Barton Yarborough and Walter Packard as the...
Walter Patterson.
Walter Patterson, yes. I was thinking Jack Packard, yeah. Walter Patterson as the three characters of the A1 Detective Agency. So he would write that. It was a 15-minute show, 5 days a week. And he would start writing the show. Some people said he never knew what the ending was, and he's always said, I always knew what the ending was. I just didn't know who the killer was going to be. And he sort of based this on the Three Musketeers, who he read as a boy and really loved because there was so much adventure in it. And instead of having a murder mystery all the time, he would do a murder mystery, then an adventure, then a drama, and come back to a murder mystery. And he would write, direct, produce, and do everything for the show. And he said that he would write One Man's Family on Mondays and Tuesdays, and the rest of the show, the rest of the week for ILAM. His interesting thing is he would build on the previous episode and develop the next episode. So it wasn't like he already had the whole story worked out. It's usually a day or two ahead of time. And he worked 7 days a week for 2.5 hours a day getting it done.
So you mentioned the West Coast cast. And then when it moved to New York several years later, right?
Yeah,
they
the
resurrected the same scripts, didn't they?
Yes, they did. In fact, one of the networks called and says, we'd like you to do this. We have a sponsor and would like to have I Love a Mystery Resurrection, because it was canceled, I believe, in 44. And so he went back to New York, and they had a different cast of Russell Thorson, who, incidentally, if you watch reruns on TV, you'll find him in Cheyenne and Mavericks. He was usually a sheriff or a bad guy in that. And, of course, Doc Long was played by Jim Bowles, and you couldn't really tell the difference in the accents between him and Barton Yarborough. And then thirdly was Tony Randall, the noted actor who played Reggie York, the Englishman.
And that was one of his first big breaks, and he did some soap opera things, I think, also on radio, but one of his first long-running big breaks.
Yes, in fact, sometimes I think people had asked him in interviews about the character, and he wasn't really thrilled about talking about Reggie York.
Now, you mentioned that you had episodes of I Love a Mystery that went for what, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I Love a Mystery was usually 15 minutes long, be 3 weeks long, and then they would start another one, and they were pretty well wrapped up. The interesting thing is they always sounded with a bell, and depending on the number of bells, that'd tell you what time of the day it was. But, yeah, it would go 3 weeks, and each start a new one. And there were some great ones out there that people really, really like. The club's benefactor, John Dunning, has said, it's one of the most sought-after mystery shows on the radio, and there's so very few of them out there.
And I remember the theme song, which was a haunting one. It was called Valstriest
by Sibelius.
Yes, and by the way, I was just a kid, of course, didn't know anything about classical music, and I happened to hear that on the radio in a classical music show, and I said, well, that's not classical music, that's I Love a Mystery.
Well, that's just like listening to Lone Ranger, not knowing William Tell Overture.
Yeah, these themes that kind of set the scene. Well, this particular episode that you brought along with us, what's the name of it?
This is called Bury Your Dead, Arizona. There are so few shows out there from I Love a Mystery that this one comes from the New York run, and it's an isolated episode, Bury Your Dead, Arizona, with Russell Thorson and Jim Bowles and Tony Randall and Mercedes McCambridge. Now, Mercedes was in Chicago, moved to the West Coast, did some shows there, then went back to the East Coast to do Broadway plays, and he picked her up there, and he loved Mercedes McCambridge because she'd come into his office, do a lot of brogue or different dialects, and it'd give him an idea for a story, and he would write it around what she had been talking about.
And she could do a little sweet little voice, too, of a feminine voice, as well as some strong...
She was an incredible actress. She was so good in what she did.
And
very
if I'm not mistaken, she was on both the Hollywood and the New York series.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said, when she was on Los Angeles, she was doing the I-Lambs out there, and then when she moved to New York, and he had to fly back there, he picked her up right away, wanted her.
Well, it's time now for us to listen to this great episode from the series I Love a Mystery.
Mutual Broadcasting System presents I Love a Mystery. Carlton Morse adventure thriller,
It is unfortunate you chose this boxcar.
Why?
Because this car is occupied by the maestro and myself.
That's all right. You won't bother us.
But you bother us.
Did you say the maestro?
I did.
You mean there's somebody else in this here freight car besides you?
The maestro, yes.
A man?
A very great man.
Well, what's a very great man doing riding in a boxcar? Yeah, and what about you? You a female hobo?
That is insult.
Well, why is it? Most folks that rides on freight trains is bindle stiff.
I am not bindle stiff, I will have you know.
Not, huh?
No. The maestro and I have temporary financial difficulties.
Financial difficulties, huh?
That is true.
But see here, where is this maestro person?
Right now he is asleep.
So you're out of cash, so you and the maestro are trying to get somewhere by freight, is that it?
Yes. Business is not good.
Well, just what is your business?
I am dancer. The maestro is great magician.
Magician? You mean one of them fellers that pulls rabbits out of a hat?
Oh, pull rabbit out of hat.
Well, does he or don't he?
The maestro don't pull rabbit out of hat. He is great man, I tell you.
The maestro your husband?
My husband?
Yeah, you and him married?
That is preposterous.
Oh, it is?
The maestro is not married to any woman. What kind of a man do you think the maestro is?
That's what we're trying to find out.
That is what many people try to find out. What kind of man is maestro? but nobody ever has.
You been with him long?
2, 3 years, I don't know.
You been tagging that maestro around for 2, 3 years and you ain't married to him?
I most certainly am not. That is insult to the maestro.
Oh, you think you ain't good enough for him?
No woman is good enough for the maestro. I am best woman there is, and even I am not good enough for
I
him.
say, he must be quite a chappy. Well, how about us striking a couple of matches and having a look at you?
No, you do not like matches.
Well, huh? Why not?
Because it will disturb the maestro.
What's your name?
Nasha.
Nasha, huh?
You mind?
Oh, who, me? No, it's okay by me.
Nasha. What is that, Russian?
No, I am not Russian.
Your dialect sounds Russian.
I am not Russian.
Nasha?
Aye, that is the maestro.
Nasha,
Yes, maestro.
who are you talking to?
I do not know.
You don't know?
No, I do not know.
Well, find out.
Yes, I will. Who are you?
My name's Jack Packard.
One is named Jack Packard.
I'm Doc Long,
One is named Doc Long.
and I'm Reggie York.
And one is Reggie York. That is all.
What are they doing in this boxcar?
I do not know.
Well, ask them.
What are you doing in this boxcar?
Just going for a ride.
The one named Jack Packard say they are going for a ride.
Tell them to get out.
Hey, who does he think he is?
He is the maestro. He say get out.
Well, tell him to take a jump at himself.
The one named Doc Long say go take a jump at yourself.
What's that?
He say go take a jump at yourself.
Oh, he did eh?
Yes, that's what he said.
Apparently he doesn't know who I am.
I guess he don't. Shall I stick a knife in him?
Oh, look here.
You do, and I'll whale the daylights out of you.
Then what I do?
You just shut up and let me go back to sleep.
The maestro is great man. He needs his sleep.
Hey, Maestro.
Who said that?
I did. Come on out, be sociable.
Apparently you don't know who I am.
Sure, you're the Maestro. Come on up the doorway.
Very well, very well. Anything to make for peace and good feeling. Well?
How do you do? Care to sit down on the door and dangle your feet?
No, I would not care to dangle my feet. Nasha?
Maestro?
Go bring that packing box.
Yes, maestro.
Nasha says there's 3 of you.
That's right. Doc here.
Hiya, Maestro, old kid.
Reggie.
My pleasure, Maestro.
And myself.
Tramps?
Hey, fella.
Do we sound like tramps?
The packing box, maestro. Will you be comfortable?
Certainly I will not be comfortable. When was a man ever comfortable seated on a packing case?
Your star has not risen yet, maestro. But it will. It will.
These men say they're not tramps.
They want to know if I am Bindlestiff. I am insult.
Nasha Bindlestiff, eh?
Well, shucks, it is only naturally important folks don't ever ride around in a boxcar.
I beg your pardon.
Well, do they?
I am an important person. I am riding in a boxcar.
Important, huh? Nasha here said you were a 2-bit magician.
I did no such thing say that. I said he is great man.
And, gentlemen, she is right. I am a great man.
Don't mind admitting it yourself.
I do not.
I wish there was some light. I'd like to get a look at you two.
Why?
You sound like a pair of phonies to me.
He say phonies. Shall I stick a knife in him?
I'll whale the tar out of you if you do.
He say phonies.
You are Mr. Packard?
That's right.
You think, Mr. Packard, you could tell whether we are phonies if you could see us?
Yes?
Perhaps you'd like us to describe ourselves.
Sure. We aren't doing anything in particular.
Nasha, describe yourself.
Yes. I am very beautiful. I am very exotic. My hair and eyes are black as night, and my mouth is red. I am straight and lithe. And my body is so flexible I can stand straight and touch my forehead on my knees, or I can bend backwards and touch my head to the floor. I am built like a young boy, but my legs are nicer. I am so proud of my legs, and I dance as no other girl can dance.
Ooh, wee and hot dog.
You don't believe me?
Well, sure, I believe you. Only pretty soon I'm going to wake up and take another drag on the opium pipe.
It does sound a bit incongruous, doesn't it?
Nasha hasn't begun to tell you her accomplishments.
She says she's not Russian.
She is not. She is from one of the states close to the Russian frontier. Does she sound phony?
Well, you'll have to admit she's hard to believe. What about yourself?
My hair is silver gray. I'm extremely fat and ugly man. I'm neatly dressed, but shabby. I'm a sensualist, but I have strong, fine hands. I'm a magician, yes,
But I'm more than a magician. I'm a student of philosophy, of mysticism, of higher ethics.
Are you a moral man?
I'm neither moral nor immoral. I am unmoral.
I say, Maestro, what do you mean you're a student of mysticism?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
Well, do you mind explaining?
Yes. Your lack of understanding would only convince you I am a charlatan.
Why are you on this freight train?
Why are you?
Circumstances?
Exactly, my friend, exactly. Circumstances.
Hey, looky, how do you and Nasha here happen to be traveling around together?
You're very curious about other people's affairs, aren't you?
Okay, I can take a hint.
On the other hand, I don't mind in the least telling you. We all need money from time to time to keep body and soul together. When finances are bad, I suffer the indignity of going on the stage to perform simple acts of magic before the public. Nasha is part of my paraphernalia.
Oh, I get it. She's the girl that you saw in Half and the girl that escaped from locked trunks, things like that.
And I dance. That is what I like to do best. Dance.
In other words, you're a common garden variety of magician with a lot of highfalutin ideas.
You're trying to insult me, Mr. Packard?
Perhaps.
Well, you won't succeed. When you talk in that manner, I consider you stupid. An intelligent man never pays attention to stupidity.
Thanks.
Well, if you're so doggone smart, go ahead and show us something.
Show you something?
Sure, if you're such a high muck-a-muck in this here mysticism stuff, go ahead and show us something.
That's a very dangerous thing to say, young man.
Yeah? Why?
Because I might do it.
Well, go ahead. What's holding you back?
Nasha.
Yes, Maestro.
Remove that cloak.
Yes, Maestro.
Have you done so?
Yes, Maestro.
Then lie down at my feet.
Yes, Maestro.
There. You cannot see the girl, but she's lying curled up at my feet. Nasha?
Yes, Maestro.
You are thinking only what I am thinking?
Yes, Maestro.
You are going to let me put this rawhide leash about your neck?
Yes. Yes.
I stroke your hair. Stroke your hair. Now it is no longer human hair. It is the hair of an animal. The mane of a tigress. The mane of a tigress. You are going to be a tigress. When I say so, you are going to be a tigress. You are a tigress.
Hey, Jack, it's snarling. Hey, look at its eyes. Look at its eyes.
They're shining.
Shining in the dark.
That's enough. That's enough, Nasha. Nasha, you're a woman.
I am so sleepy.
Sleep, Nasha. Sleep.
Doggone. I don't like it. I don't like it a bit.
Nasha's asleep, gentlemen. She won't awaken. You don't need to lower your voices.
Boy, I darn near jumped clean out of this boxcar.
Well, Mr. Packard...
What do you think you were doing?
Just a very short visit into the realm of mysticism. A very short and unimportant visit.
And you want us to believe you turned that girl into an animal?
Why should you believe anything except what you heard and saw?
It was too dark in here to see anything.
But her eyes, Jack, I seen her eyes. They was blazing green and yellow in the dark.
I saw that.
And that horrible snarling.
Yes, I heard the snarling.
And you don't believe?
No, I don't believe.
You don't believe your eyes, you don't believe your ears. Would you believe your sense of touch?
I might.
We'll see. I clap my hands twice.
Hey, what was that?
A man has just been murdered.
Murdered? Here in this boxcar?
Nuts.
Mr. Packard, reach over here at my feet where Nasha was lying.
Well, sure. Why not?
What's that?
A man with a knife in his heart. You are touching the knife.
Yes. A man with a knife in his heart.
You believe?
Well, this isn't magic. It's murder. The further transcribed adventures of Jack, Doc, and Reggie will come to you tomorrow at this same hour. I Love a Mystery, written and directed by Carlton E. Morse, comes to you Monday through Friday, featuring Russell Thorson as Jack, Jim Bowles as Doc Long, and Tony Randall as Reggie York. Frank McCarthy speaking. This program came from New York. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Bury Your Dead, Arizona, from I Love a Mystery, on Old Time Radio from the Rockies. It was introduced by Barrett Benson, our good friend, who comes along every once in a while to talk with us and to sometimes bring a bag of goodies of Old Time Radio things that we like to talk about and or play on the air. And actually, people listening now who've just heard that maybe would like to know how they could get a show like that and have it, for their own collection, to hear it again, or some other shows that we present on the program.
Well, these shows are in our library. The I Love a Mysteries and I Love Adventure, Adventures by Morse are in our tape library, whereas the Weird Circle, which we also heard, is also in the CD library. We have some of the One Man's Family shows in the tape library also.
And you brought along with you some information that's very, very vital about the library. What have you got for us this time?
Well, this time we're going to have mostly Burns and Allen, but we're going to start off with music and bands, the remotes. And three of the shows actually are called Jubilee, which was an armed forces show with name band people coming in like Lena Horne, Mills Brothers, Benny Goodman, and those are just great. And the host was Ernest Bubbles Whitman. And then we're going to go into a bunch of the Burns and Allen show, which I really like. It was on from 1932 to 1950, and indeed I even have one show which is somewhat questionable quality, but it was an audition in the 50s for another series, but it never made it. One of the shows we have is, of course, George and Sam Spade Go to Jail. That show we've already broadcast, and it is one very funny show.
So we had Howard Duff, who played Sam Spade. Was his guest.
Yeah, it was such a funny show, and I was so glad that we were able to play that. We also have some miscellaneous shows, Ziegfeld Follies from 1932, which were basically show plays. Chase and Sanborn Hour from the 30s, which is Bergen and McCarthy. Hoosier Hot Shots, which is hillbilly stuff. And Gangbusters, Suspense, Death Valley Days, a Fred Allen show, and Mole Mystery Theater. And then we conclude on our catalog pages The Whistler, which was a West Coast show.
Now, if that intrigues anybody or piques their interest, how would they be able to get any one of these shows?
We can go to our website, get the information there, join the RHAC, and rent the tapes or CDs, and it's rhac.org is our website.
Pretty simple. I just want to throw in a little thing. You mentioned the Hoosier Hot Shots, which I don't think we talk about too much, do we?
No.
But I had a record, an old 78, From the Indies to the Andes in His Undies was a song that the Hoosier Hot Shots had recorded. I just had to bring that up.
Well, it was on in the 1950s, and we had the first show on, which was like sometime in the early 50s.
Barrett Benson telling us about what's in the catalog of old-time radio shows from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. Now, what's going to be next on our program? We'll tell you about that in just a moment. And next time on Old Time Radio from the Rockies, Bill McCracken, what are we going to have?
Well, next time we're going to do 2 more shows, and they're both going to be from a new catalog page, which Barrett Benson will tell you about next month. But as a preview, we're going to be doing a Fred Allen show and then a 15-minute Bing Crosby program.
Can you tell us who the guest with Fred Allen will be?
I believe it's going to be Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. And Bing will sing some of the songs of the day.
One of your favorites. I'm sure we'll work it in.
In a 15-minute presentation, right?
Yes.
That's on Old Time Radio from the Rockies. And as always, thanks to Bill Bragg and Walden Hughes, who make it possible for Old Time Radio from the Rockies to be heard here on Yesterday USA. Now, this is Fred Hobbs, your online host, saying goodbye and good radio. This is RHAC, the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. From the foot of the Rockies in Denver, Colorado, here's a program capturing the drama and fun of the golden days of broadcasting. Old Time Radio from the Rockies. Hello, this is Fred Hobbs. I'm speaking to you from the radio studios of RHAC, the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. And we're here to bring you interviews, historical information, book reviews, events, and fun for all on Old Time Radio, especially related to the Rocky Mountain region because that's where we're located. A few minutes ago, a large moving van pulled up in front of our studios for our program, and out from that moving van, several large cartons of material that were then shifted into an elevator and brought up here to our studios, accompanied by our friend Bill McCracken from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. Upon opening these boxes, I learned that these were some of the wonderful radio shows that have been collected over the years that are part of the library of the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. And a few of them Bill has chosen from time to time to present on this radio show. And today he chose...
We're going to be doing one of the 82 shows in our library called Screen Guild Theater.
And why did you particularly choose this show?
Oh, probably 2 main reasons. As you'll be hearing later in our broadcast, there are some Screen Guild theaters about to be added to the RHAC library for members to enjoy. And secondly, the show is a little different than something that we've done in recent times. The show content, in other words.
Screen Guild Theater sounds like it would have been a television show. What was the radio angle of this?
Well, it actually started in 1939, sponsored by Gulf, and was known as the Gulf Screen Guild Theater. And that lasted for about 3 years, and then Gulf decided, because the gasoline was being rationed during World War II, that they could no longer be the sponsor, and the program nearly disappeared. But a company called Lady Esther came along and agreed to sponsor the program, and did for the next 4 years or so, calling it the Lady Esther Screen Guild Theater.
And the format was?
To start with, under Gulf, it had been a variety show for a half an hour, and then really after the first year, it became under Gulf and then under Lady Esther as movie adaptations for the most part.
Did it feature actual movie actors doing radio scripts?
Yes, what we'll be hearing today actually involves two original cast members of a rather well-known movie, and two rather well-known people for that matter.
Now, we spent quite a bit of time leading up to this, and you told me that you weren't going to tell me in advance what the particular show was that you chose and the movie that it was based on. So you're going to do that now for me?
I guess I'm going to have to break it and tell you that we're going to be doing, in effect, a musical today. A musical adaptation of For Me and My Gal, produced by MGM during the years of Busby Berkeley and Roger Edens. And the original stars were Judy Garland, Gene Kelly in his movie debut, and George Murphy. For this broadcast, we're going to be hearing Judy Garland and Gene Kelly, and replacing Murphy because he was ill is another song and dance man from the 1930s anyway, who later became a well-known detective, Dick Powell.
That's a wonderful cast, actually, isn't it?
And this also was a chance to hear Judy Garland before she turned 21. For this broadcast from March of 1943, she's 20 years old, and as I said, she and Gene Kelly are together for the first time. The movie had been filmed about a year before, and the studios were keeping Judy Garland very busy. For example, For Me and My Gal was filmed over a 6-month period in 1942, and the second half of the year she did a movie called Presenting Lily Mars. And then during this very broadcast, she was in the middle of filming her last movie with Mickey Rooney called Girl Crazy.
Well, Bill, since you went to all this trouble to ride in the van and bring up all of these wonderful shows and then go on and tell us about them, the least we can do is play the show, correct?
I'm afraid you're forcing us into airing that program from Lady Esther Screen Guild Theater from March of 1943.
Lady Esther presents the Screen Guild Players. Screen Guild play tonight, For Me and My Gal. The starring players.
This is Judy Garland.
This is Gene Kelly. And this is Dick Powell. Tonight, Lady Esther presents the Screen Guild Players in For Me and My Gal. It's a story fondly dedicated to that branch of the show business that was called vaudeville. And it stars Judy Garland as Joe Hayden, Dick Powell as Jimmy Metcalf, and Gene Kelly as Harry Palmer. Back in the days when vaudeville was alive, the mecca of all vaudevillians was the Palace Theater on Broadway. And playing the Palace was the object of all their hopes and ambitions. And vaudevillians still gather on the wide sidewalk in front of the theater and over the traffic noises shout reminiscences of the old times when they killed the people and laid them in the aisles.
You know, before the gym out back when there was a broken heart for every light on Broadway, the Palace broke its share, too.
You can say that again. Remember Palmer and Hayden?
Joe Hayden?
Yeah. They played the Heartbreak circuit trying to get here.
Yeah?
Yeah. We were all playing Clifton Junction, Iowa at the time they met. Harry Palmer was heading the bill in his comedy tramp act, and Joe Hayden was the mechanical doll in my act.
Was that the flash act you called Jimmy Metcalf and Company in the doll shop?
That's right. And oh, what a turkey that was. Anyway, after our first show in Clifton Junction, Joe went for a walk around town. She stopped in a restaurant to get a cup of coffee when Harry Palmer walked up to her table and, without waiting for an invitation, sat down. Joe had been ignoring Harry all day, but that didn't bother Palmer. He had a pretty thick skin.
Hiya, Springtime. Mind if I sit down and have a cup of coffee with you? Well, thanks. I don't mind if I do. I always was a sucker for that old Southern hospitality. Oh, look, Breathless, why don't you come off it? You know you're going to wind up calling me pet names.
Look, I didn't like you at 7 o'clock this morning, and I don't like you now. And if you keep playing your cards right, I'm going to wind up hating you.
Listen, Fancy Face, I caught you on the stage this afternoon. And starting next season, I'm doing a double act. You're going to be my partner.
Oh, I am, huh?
You said it. And standing next to me, you look like $1,000,000 in nickels and dimes. Palmer and Hayden. We'll fracture the people.
Listen, I wouldn't be your partner if they booked us in the Palace 51 weeks a year.
I don't get it. Why?
Oh, there are a lot of reasons. But you wouldn't understand any of them. Gee, I feel sorry for an egotist like you.
Oh. Oh, look, Miss Hayden, I'm sorry. All that big talk about fracturing the people, that's strictly small-town talk on a lonesome night. Say, look, that act you're in needs punching up here and there. Why don't you take this?
What is it?
It's a song I bought. Song for you and me to sing when we play the Palace.
Oh, I couldn't think of...
Go ahead. It's no good to me without you. You and Jimmy Metcalf can do it.
Well, gosh, I don't know how to thank you. I'm sorry I spoke
Forget it. You had me pegged. I'm not going to win any blue ribbons for being a great guy. Say, Skip.
Would I what?
Well, I was just going to ask you if you'd sing the tune with me once, but after the way that
Well, why not? I'd love to sing it with you, Harry.
You would? Well, come on over to the piano. I'll try to pick it out for you. I'm a one-finger Paderewski.
Well, then maybe you better let me play it. Here. Ding dong, do you hear the bells go ding dong? Do you know why they're ringing? Do you know why the birds are singing? Well, you're gonna get a big surprise, 'cause I'm gonna put you wise. The bells are ringing for me and my gal. The birds are singing for me and my gal. Everybody's been knowing to a wedding they're going, and for weeks they've been sewing. Every Susie and Sal, they're congregating for me and my gal. The parson's waiting for me and my gal. And sometime we're gonna build a little home for 2 or 3 or 4 or more in Log Land for me and my gal. The bells are ringing for me and my gal. The birds are singing for me and my gal. Everybody's been knowing to a wedding they're going, and for weeks they've been sewing. They've been sewing something old and something new, so something that is blue, so they can make a trousseau for my gal. They're congregating for me and my gal. Look here, why, that's the parson waiting for me and my gal. And sometime we're gonna build a little home for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe more. Love Land for me and my gal.
I'd been standing outside that little restaurant watching Joe and Harry ad-lib their song and dance routine, and I saw they were absolute naturals for each other. So I hurried back to the hotel to dream up some way to make Joe leave my act and team up with Harry. I was sitting in her room when she... Hi.
Well, make yourself at home.
Thanks, I have already. Say, did Harry Palmer ask you to team up with him?
What do you mean?
Well, I was walking around and saw you in that restaurant. You were swell together. Terrific. If he didn't ask you to team up with him, he's crazy.
Well, look, Jimmy, I'm kind of sleepy.
Say, what did you tell him, Joe?
I told him I already had a job.
Yeah? Well, you haven't. I'm breaking up the act, Joe.
What? Oh, no, you're not. I'm not going to have you making any noble sacrifices on my account.
Who said anything about your account or noble sacrifices? I've got a new idea, and I'm going to try it out with Sid Sims. Just the 2 of us.
You know, if I thought you were trying to pave the way for me...
Oh, now, wait a minute. What are you talking about? This is business. Good business for everybody.
Gee, Palmer and Hayden. Think of that.
Huh?
Palmer and Hayden. That's the way we're going to bill ourselves.
Well, as it turned out, breaking up the old act was good business for me.
Yep, Metcalf and Sims did all right.
Yeah, but Joe and Harry didn't get the breaks. And with both our acts busy, we didn't run into each other again until late 1917, after America had entered in the First World War. Sid and I had closed in Minneapolis, and we were heading for the Palace when I read in Variety that Palmer and Hayden were playing in the Aladdin Theater in Chicago. So I went down there to see them, between trains. And when I got there, Joe was feeling pretty low and lonely.
Gosh, I'm sorry Harry isn't here, Jimmy, but he's out with a friend. You'll never guess who, either. Eve Menard.
Eve Menard, the headliner at the Majestic?
Uh-huh.
Say, he's traveling in pretty fast company. Where'd you meet her?
Oh, on the train last night. You know Harry. She's a big success, and she's pretty, and, well...
Joe, you're in love with that guy, aren't you?
Harry? Oh, no, I'm not in love.
Hey, Shorty. Remember me, Jimmy Metcalf? The fellow who played Clinton Junction with you? Now, come on, level with me.
Oh, Jimmy, it's way down deep inside me. He's wrong, but I love him. It's no good. Gee, what do you do when you love somebody so much and they don't even know you're around?
I don't know, Joe. I guess you just keep right on loving him.
Say, well, hello, stranger.
Oh, hi, Harry.
Jimmy, I hear you're doing all right for yourself these days.
Oh, not so bad.
Well, I always like to see a young fella get ahead.
Harry, we're on in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I know. You better go on first and give me a chance to change.
All right, but hurry, please.
Say, how about you two having supper with me after the show tonight?
Gee, I'd like to, Jimmy, but I got a date with Eve. You kids figure out something for yourselves. I got to change.
So, that's the way it is, huh, Shorty?
Yeah. That's the way it is, Jimmy.
Well, you don't want to miss your cue.
No.
Make it good, Shorty. I'll be out front watching you.
All right, Jimmy. I'll make it good. After you've gone and left me crying, after you've gone, there's no denying. You feel blue, you feel sad. You'll miss the bestest pal you ever had. There'll come a time, now don't forget it. There'll come a time when you regret it. Someday when you go lonely, your heart will break like mine and you'll want me only after you've gone, after you've gone away. There'll come a time, now don't forget it. There'll come a time when you'll regret it. Oh, baby, think what you're doing. I'm gonna haunt you so, I'm gonna taunt you so, it's gonna drive you to ruin. After you've gone
We will continue in just a moment with the second half of For Me and My Gal, starring Judy Garland, Gene Kelly, and Dick Powell. But first, here's a word from our hostess, Lady Esther.
In a recent magazine article addressed to the women of America, an important government official said, "There's nothing new about women in factories, but what is new are the kinds of jobs women are doing today and the kinds of women who are doing them." Well, we all know the tough, man-sized jobs women are now doing. And as for the kinds of women, just look at their pictures in newspapers and magazines. One thing is very evident. They're not letting their jobs make them look any less attractive. Their skin may be taking a lot more punishment from grease and flying dust, but they've turned to methods that meet today's special needs. Methods that help keep their skin radiantly clean, fresh, and attractive, even under the most trying conditions. Now, thousands of women in war work have changed to Lady Esther four-purpose face cream, and there's a very good reason why. Here's one cream that, by itself, does 4 different things always important to the skin, but right now especially so. First, Lady Esther Face Cream thoroughly cleans your skin, removing even stubborn dirt from the pore openings. Second, it softens your skin, relieves the dryness that often causes little lines, especially in these tense and anxious times. Third, it helps nature refine the pores. And fourth, it leaves a perfect non-sticky base for powder. Now, if you're beginning to notice tired lines here and there due to dryness or perhaps an occasional blemish or big pore, don't wait for more serious skin troubles. Start using Lady Esther Full-Purpose Face Cream. And remember, this one cream is all you need for the complete care of your skin.
The curtain on Act 2 of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's For Me and My Gal, starring Judy Garland as Joe Hayden, Dick Powell as Jimmy Metcalf, and Gene Kelly as Harry Palmer. Adapted for radio by Bill Hampton. And now back to the sidewalk in front of the Palace Theater, where Jimmy Metcalf is telling his story of Harry Palmer and Joe Hayden. For Me and My Gal.
Did Eve Menard break up Palmer and Hayden, Jimmy?
No, and that was the first time Harry Palmer acted like a decent guy. Eve offered Harry a spot in her act, but when it came time to tell Joe he was leaving her, Harry discovered that he loved Joe. And he walked out on Eve instead. As a matter of fact, it must have been quite a struggle for Harry. Eve was playing the Palace the next week. The Palace. The center of every hope and dream and ambition that Harry had ever had. The Palace. The thought that had kept him going during a lifetime of tank towns and one-night stands. Yes, sir, he would have given his right arm to play the Palace, but because he loved Joe, he gave up that big chance. And they began packing to go to the next tank town.
Hey, our train leaves in half an hour. You got to help me pack, Joe.
Telegram from Mr. Palmer.
Okay, bring it in. Thanks.
Well, what does it say, Harry? Is it bad news?
Bad news? Joe, honey, listen to this. It's from our agent. Great opportunity. Palmer and Hayden booked into Palace, New York. First week in September. Congratulations, Baron Poland. Oh, Palmer and Hayden, honey, that's us. We're going to play the Palace.
Oh, it's wonderful, Harry. Everything's wonderful.
And you know what we're going to do after the first matinee?
Have dinner, maybe?
We're going to get married.
Married? Harry. Oh, darling.
The first week in September. Open at the Palace and get married at the little church around the corner.
Open at the Palace and get married at the little church around the corner. Wonderful. Then, in the middle of August, Harry got a tough break. He'd made the Palace on his talent. The Palace, he and Joe had beat their brains out to reach. But his chance was snatched away from him before he could take it. Harry got his draft notice, ordered to report immediately. And on the day he took his Army physical, something snapped in the boy's mind.
Relax, baby, relax. The Palace is okay. We're going to kill him.
Well, what do you mean? You mean the Army rejected you?
For 6 weeks. They gave me a 6-week deferment. We can play the Palace, get married, and have a honeymoon before the time's up.
But how... Why did they... Harry, what happened to your hand?
Oh, that's nothing. Just a little accident. I dropped the lid of my trunk on it. It's keep me out of the Army for 6 weeks. But don't worry, baby. It won't keep us from playing the Palace. Well, what are you looking at me that way? Well, it was an accident. Joe, don't you believe me? All right, then. I did do it on purpose. But I only did it for us. Well, you believe that, don't you?
Oh, I feel sorry for you, Harry. Terribly, desperately sorry.
Joe, you can only listen
There's only one thing you can tell me. Goodbye. Leave me alone. I never want to see you again as long as I live. Never.
So that's what busted up Palmer and Hayden, eh, Jimmy?
Yep, and right after that, Joe disappeared, and things went from bad to worse for Harry. He realized what a terrible thing he'd done, and, well, he tried to enlist in the Army, the Navy, the Marines, anywhere. But none of them would take him because he'd crippled his hand permanently. The next time I saw either of them was, several months later in France. My outfit had just come back from the front, and I walked into a YMCA concert and saw Joe on the stage singing.
Reuben, I've been thinking, said his wifey dear. Now that things are peaceful and calm, the boys will soon be back on the farm. Mr. Reuben started winking and slowly rubbed his chin. He pulled his chair up close to Mother and he asked her with a grin, how you gonna keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris? How you gonna keep them away from Broadway, jazzing around and painting the town? How you gonna keep them away from harm? That's the mystery. Imagine Reuben when he meets his boss. You get to cheek and holler, wow! How you gonna keep them down on the farm after they see Paris?
As soon as she'd finished taking her bows, I hurried backstage and met her, just as she was going to her dressing room.
Jimmy. Oh, Jimmy, come here and let me put my arms around you.
Joe, let me look at you. Oh, gosh. It's sensational.
Thank you.
Say, how about you and me stepping out tonight, showing these Frenchmen what they can really do in a town like Paris, huh?
Oh, it's a deal, but I got one more number to do. Will you wait till I get ready?
I've been waiting a long time for you, baby.
I'll only be a minute. I want to freshen my makeup up.
Well, you know me, Joe. I'm a good waiter.
I'll be right with you.
Hey, Jimmy. Jimmy Metcalf, is that you?
Well, Harry Palmer. So how long have you been over here?
I just landed a few hours ago.
Good to see you, Harry. How's it going?
Oh, not good, Jimmy. I thought it'd be better over here, but it's not. Not in a YMCA uniform.
Oh, what are you giving me?
I'm in the right army, but I got the wrong suit on.
Harry, you know what's the matter with you? You've been walking around with a picture book villain in your pocket, and every once in a while you take it out and look at it like it was a mirror.
Look, Jimmy, if you're going to hand me that...
You know, you did something because you thought it was the right thing to do at the time. And you had two good reasons for doing it. Because you wanted to get someplace that meant more to you than anything in the world, and because you loved someone an awful lot.
Thanks, Actor. Can I buy you a drink?
Can you buy me a drink? Say, certainly. Sure. Say, I just happened to think. I got a date to meet a fella. Tell you what you do, Harry. You sit right there in that chair and wait for me, huh?
Okay.
I won't be gone over 10 minutes. I'll see you.
I'll be here.
Well, here I am, Jimmy, all signed, sealed, and delivered. Harry, what are you doing here?
Joe.
Gosh, I never expected to see you.
Oh, Joe.
How have you been, Harry? How's everything in New York? You know, it's a funny thing. Just the other day I was thinking...
Joe, you don't have to skip rope for me. I know the boat has sailed as far as we're concerned. And I know I'm not a great guy in a lot of people's books. But I don't care about a lot of people. Joe, coming over in the boat, I took an inventory, and you know something? Right up to this minute, my only claim to fame is you were once my girl. Joe, you have to tell me. Not a million other people, but you have to tell me that I'm not a coward, and that you don't hate me. That's the medal I want to win in this war.
You're not a coward, Harry, and you know that I'd never hate you.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks an awful lot. And I'll take good care of that medal.
Harry took good care of that medal, too. And he earned another one from the Army.
He and Joe got back together then, huh?
Nope. In fact, they didn't see each other again until after the war. Jo had become pretty famous as the sweetheart of the U.S. Army, and when she returned to America, she was booked right in here, in the Palace, as a special added attraction. Oh, I tell you, I never felt so sorry for anyone in my whole life as I felt for Harry Palmer the day Jo opened at the Palace. Without him.
Yeah, that's a heartbreak.
He called me and, well, he insisted that I come down here with him to give the kid a hand, he said. I remember we were sitting in the third row when the orchestra played Jo on.
You know, Jimmy, I ruined my whole life trying to play the Palace with Jo, and I didn't make it. We were going to be married after our first matinee here.
Yeah, I know, kid. Look at her. She's wonderful, isn't she?
There's nobody in the world like her. And she's on top now, right where she belongs.
Yeah. Too bad you aren't up there with her.
No, I blew my chance, and I've got nobody to blame but myself. Oh, but it's a kick knowing she got there.
Hey, Harry, she sees us.
Yeah. Fracture the people, baby.
Harry! Harry!
You made it, baby. It's the Palace.
Oh, come up here on the stage, Harry, with me.
What?
Come on, old Jimmy, make him come up.
Okay, here he comes.
Oh, Harry, this is wonderful.
Yeah, congratulations, Jo. You sound great.
Well, where'd you disappear to, Harry? I looked all over France for you.
Well, that's where I was, all over France. Hey, there goes our song.
Yeah, just the way we planned it for our first matinee here. Palmer and Hayden.
That was us, baby.
That is us, Harry.
What?
You're not trying to back out of that date we had at the little church around the corner, are you?
Oh, Jo, do you really mean that?
I mean it, Harry.
Then what are we waiting for? Let's finish this first matinee.
The bells are ringing for me and my gal. The birds are singing for me and my gal. Everybody's been knowing to a wedding they're going, and for weeks they've been sewing. They've been sewing every month when something new, so something that is blue, so they can make a trousseau for my gal. They're congregating for me and my gal. Look here, why, that's the parson waiting for me and my gal. And sometime we're gonna build a little home for 2 or 3
or 4
or 5
or maybe more.
Love land for me and my gal. Love land for me and my
So the curtain falls on For Me and My Gal, a Lady Esther Screen Guild Players presentation. Our thanks and appreciation to you, Judy Garland, Gene Kelly, and Dick Powell, for appearing with us tonight.
Oh, I think we have some very special thanks for Dick Powell, Mr. Bradley. Dick stepped into George Murphy's role on practically 5 minutes' notice when George came down with a light case of the measles.
Well, Judy, I'm glad to help, Judy. Anything we can do to benefit the Motion Picture Relief Fund is a pleasure.
Oh, you're right, Dick. And now, before we tell you about next week's program, here's a word from one of America's best-known beauty authorities, Lady Esther.
Thank you, Miss Garland. I ran into the daughter of an old friend the other day, and she told me she was in training at a hospital, learning to be a nurse. I asked her how she liked it, and her eyes lit up. I love it, she said. It's a chance to be really useful, to help people. But then she looked down at her hands and said, all except scrubbing my hands 1,000 times a day. They're all right now, but you should have seen them a week ago. They were so rough and red from all that scrubbing. I looked at her hands and saw that they were really beautiful, so smooth and white. And I asked her what she did for them. Well, here's what she told me. She told me that at night, just before going to bed, she puts a thick coating of Lady Esther face cream on her hands. Then she puts on a pair of old cotton gloves and keeps them on all night. In the morning, she says, her hands are so white and smooth, so soft and lovely to look at, you'd never dream she was a busy nurse who has to scrub her hands dozens of times a day. Now, if your hands are doing a lot of extra work these days, why don't you try this nurse's helpful suggestion, Lady Esther Face Cream, to help keep your hands soft, smooth, and young-looking.
Next week, the Lady Esther Screen Guild players will present a delightful comedy entitled This Thing Called Love, starring Alan Joslin, George Brent, and Alice Faye. Judy Garland can soon be seen in Presenting Lily Mars. Gene Kelly is soon to be seen in DeBerry Was a Lady, both Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer productions. Dick Powell is soon to be seen in Paramount's Technicolor picture Happy-Go-Lucky. Music on tonight's program was arranged and conducted by Wilbur Hatch. To save materials, buy the larger size of Lady Esther Face Cream. Truman Bradley speaking for Lady Esther, saying thank you, good night. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You're listening to Old Time Radio from the Rockies, and we just heard For Me and My Gal from the Lady Esther Screen Guild Players program on CBS in March of 1943. Next, his name is Barrett Benson, and his title, at least for this portion of our program from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado, an OTR from the Rockies, is the catalog man. Maybe we could call him that. Barrett, as a member of the RHAC, you've told us many times over these past several programs about the catalog and its purpose, and told us also specifically what's available as we move along from the catalog of shows coming up. So, first of all, just real briefly, when I say the catalog, what does that really mean?
Well, the catalog for tapes, which would be cassette and reel-to-reel, lists the shows that are going into our library. And these shows are radio shows from the 20s through the 80s. But what it really means is these are available for the people to check out that are members of RHAC, and they get to listen to them.
And you have a list of we guess we would call them releases that are coming up for this period of time, correct?
That's correct. The shows that are coming out, we have a run of the Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis show, which came on in 1949 through 52. And Dean Martin was like the master of ceremonies, and, of course, his sidekick, Jerry Lewis, was the comic, who was more or less a visual comic, if you remember him from TV and movies. So the radio show didn't do as well as the TV shows, but it was a well-received show by NBC because they needed somebody to fill in for Jack Benny, who left NBC to go to CBS. So they're looking for comics to replace them. And in addition to the Martin and Lewis half-hour shows, we have 4 of the shows that are 45 minutes, which includes the first show, which is almost like the audition with Lucille Ball. And then on one of the shows, Frank Sinatra came on, and they added another 15 minutes just for him and his own sponsors so that they could do that and have Frank Sinatra as their guest. And you remember Frank Sinatra was really big in the late 40s. Mm-hmm. And then we have a Paul Whiteman Christmas Party show on ABC, which is basically a music show. And we have another big show with Tallulah Bankhead and Danny Kaye and Gary Cooper, which was back in the 50s as radio was dying out, and they would bring in some of the radio stars to do things, do their things, like Fred Allen was a regular on that. In addition to those shows, we also have Academy Award, which was on for 1 year and basically redid the shows much like Lux did. But these were movies that were either won the Academy Award or were nominated. It was only on for 39 weeks. We also have the Telephone Hour, which was sponsored by Bell Telephone Company, so it's also known as Bell Telephone Hour. And we have 2 of those good shows. One of them is an Independence Day show with Bing Crosby. So those are very well done. And then we have some Screen Guild theaters. And this was really like Lux, except it was a half hour. They did movies and Broadway shows, and they would bring in the big stars. But the big thing about that is that all the fees that the stars would get would be donated to the Motion Picture Relief Fund so that they could have an actor's home for aged and out-of-work people that were in the industry. And they were sponsored by Gulf, Camel, Lady Esther, and they were also known as the Screen Guild Players. And then finally we're coming up with Philo Vance, which was a detective based on S.S. Van Dyne novels, starred Jackson Beck. And what was interesting, I always thought, was sometimes radio shows, what are the titles of the shows? So this was syndicated, so they're played at different times. How do you know what it is? Well, at the midpoint, the district attorney would come on, District Attorney Markham, and he would say, now to return to this, and it would be like the Bulletin murder case or something like that. So you knew what the show was, so that was easy to track. And those are our shows. We do have one Amos and Andy show and one Treasury Agent show also on this.
We certainly have a wide variety of types of shows. And I wonder, too, if our listeners really know how easy it is for them to get a hold of these shows and the other shows in our library.
Well, all they have to do is go online and go to rhac.org and join the club. It is $25 initially, and thereafter it's $15 to renew. You get a catalog with the newsletter. You know what's in there. We have a CD catalog plus the tape catalog. So it's very easy to get it, and we mail them out to them.
Barrett Benson from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado. Next on OTR from the Rockies, we turn our attention to a genre of radio that certainly was in a class beyond compare and a class of its own, and that's juvenile radio. We've had bits and pieces of a very, very few examples of juvenile radio in this series over time, but we're going to now to kind of turn to a concentration on it, at least for a few of the programs that are coming up, including this one. And we have our friend Bill McCracken from the Radio Historical Association of Colorado to take us there. Bill, what do you have?
Well, for our first outing in this genre, we're going to do a program called Captain Midnight. And you might guess or might be aware of this show from the fact that it was on between about 1938 and 1950. Pretty much serialized late in the afternoon for the boys and girls of America to listen to. Captain Midnight referred to an airline pilot, or an airplane pilot, rather. And it was probably about the second one ever done on radio, the first being The Air Adventures of Jimmy Allen from about 5 years before this. And later on, there would be programs like Hop Harrigan and others, but Captain Midnight became quite a popular show. For our program today, we're going to be doing one of the earlier shows, an isolated episode from 1939, from I believe late 1939, sponsored by the Skelly Oil Company out of Chicago, because at this time it was just a regional show.
In fact, the programs were broadcast from Chicago.
I think all the way through, yes. After about 2 years, though, it went to national broadcast, and the big sponsor was Ovaltine, and we'll talk about that a little bit after the program.
Let's hear it then, Captain Midnight.
The Skelly Oil Company presents Captain Midnight. Captain Midnight, brought to you every day, Monday through Friday, at this same time, by the Skelly Oil Company, Skelly Jobbers and Dealers. But now, I have a special message tonight for every one of those 800,000 young fellows and girls who joined Captain Midnight's Flight Patrol last year. Now, as you know, Chuck and Patsy are urging all their friends of the radio audience to join the new 1940 Flight Patrol. And, of course, all you veteran Flight Patrol members will be among the first ones to join up again this year to get in on all the new fun and adventure and free prizes that are coming. Because, of course, you know what great times we had last year. So, there are just two things I want to tell you. First, that you'll be doing all your friends a real favor if you tell them how they, too, can join the Flight Patrol and get their free Junior Pilot's application card and Spinning Propeller Medal of Membership and all the other free prizes that are coming later. Say, why not see how many new members you can get? And second, I just want to say that if you think you had fun last year, boy, you just wait until you hear about the things we have in store for you in the new 1940 Flight Patrol. Say, there'll be great times ahead for every red-blooded fellow and girl who joins up with Captain Midnight. Why, just think how much fun you'll have with that Spinning Propeller Medal of Membership alone. And will you be proud to show it to your friends and show them how to spin it and see where the pointer stops to decide who's the winner? Say, you'll find 100 different ways of having fun with it. So listen, if you haven't already joined up, have Mother or Dad drive you over to your Skelly service station tonight. Tell your Skelly man you want to join the new 1940 Flight Patrol. He'll give you your Junior Pilot's application card, and he'll send right in to Skelly headquarters for your free bronze medal of membership with the 3-blade spinning propeller and the mysterious new secret password, and he'll put your name on the list for all the other free gifts that are coming later. Remember, it doesn't cost you a single penny. So see your Skelly man and join the new 1940 Flight Patrol tonight. And now to Captain Midnight. Events are heading toward a grim climax. Captain Midnight and Chuck Ramsey finally fought off Shark's chief pilot, Von Griff, as they were rescuing Juan Pereda, whose estate and cattle Shark had appropriated. While this was happening, Ma Donovan and her group had been waiting in their cabin for Captain Midnight's and Chuck's return, guarding the wounded pilot they pulled from a plane. Suddenly, the roar of a plane overhead is heard, and Ma, Patsy, and Pinky rush out, thinking it's Captain Midnight. Slim stays inside to guard the prisoner. The plane dives over the field, and Pinky cries out,
"Quick, in with you. I'll slam the door."
But wait, Pinky. Hadn't we better watch what this plane does? We can't see it between these trees. Now, you listen to me, Patsy. You're not staying out there with bullets flying around.
Ain't Captain Midnight flying that plane? He ain't. That's the whole trouble.
Why? We don't want that pilot to hear anything.
Look out! The plane's a diving at us. It sure is.
Oh, quick, Patsy. Get inside. All right. That pilot dived right down over the treetops and then pulled up.
Well, if it ain't Captain Midnight, who is it? That's what I wish we knew.
We ought to see which way he's going so we can tell Captain Midnight. If we ever see Captain Midnight again.
He'll be here pretty soon, ma'am. Don't worry about that.
We've got to go out and see which way that plane went. He must be leaving the field. I can hardly hear him.
That's right. Patsy's right, all right. Somebody ought to go out and see what's going on.
Well, you and Pinky go, Slim. Oh, no, that won't do, Patsy, and I'll be left alone with this pilot. I'm not afraid of him, Ma. Besides, I've got Chuck's gun.
We'd better let Patsy go, ma'am, because she knows more about airplanes than we do. No, I'll stay here in the cabin with you, ma'am, and Patsy and Pinky can go outside. Pinky won't let nothing happen to her.
All right, then, but be careful, Patsy. And you keep your eye on her every minute, Pinky.
I'll do that, ma'am.
Come on, let's go.
And don't be forgetting what Captain Midnight said. Maybe there's fellers on the ground, too. Oh, I'll be looking out for that. Besides, Patsy here's got Chuck's gun.
Look over there in the corner. That pilot's watching us.
Jumping Jehoshaphat, he sure is. Well, that's just what I told you before. He knows everything that's going on here just as sure as my name is Slim Fool. Well, keep your eye on him, Slim. Patsy and I are going outside. Hey, wait a second. You better have some kind of a signal when you want to get back in. Well, how about 3 knocks? Like this. Yeah, that'll do all right.
Come on, Pinky, before that plane gets away. I closed the door. Don't be forgetting the signal. Let's go straight ahead, Pinky. Out to the edge of the field.
Just a minute, Patsy. Let's sort of look around a bit. Just to be sure nobody's hanging around that ain't got no business here.
Gee, I guess that would be a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Come on under this tree, Patsy.
Okay.
Now, a little bit closer.
It's real shady here.
Now, stand real quiet-like and start looking all around you. And you see if you're moving, other things will be watching you. But if you're standing still, then you can see other things that are moving.
I've looked all around, but I can't see anything.
So have I. I haven't seen a thing, so I guess we can move on.
I can't hear that plane any longer at all. Can you?
No, I can't, but I'm kind of hard of hearing anyhow.
Well, let's go up to that next tree trunk, and we can look out on the field.
All right, but you lead the way, but don't get too far in front.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, what's up?
Don't move.
Did you see something?
I think I do, but I'm not sure.
Oh, what is it?
I'm going to raise my arm, and you look where I'm pointing. There now. Do you see?
I don't guess I do, Patsy.
Do you see that big tree? It looks something like a fir.
Yeah, I see that.
To the left. Higher. About even with the top.
Yeah, I'm a-looking.
Do you see those two rocks? They're both round and smooth, and one's higher than the other.
Yeah, I see 'em.
On top of the smaller rock, don't you see something resting on it?
Calling rattlesnakes. You sure got sharp eyes, Patsy.
It's a gun barrel, isn't it?
It ain't nothing different.
And at the back edge of the rock, isn't that the visor of a man's cap?
That's just what it is, Patsy. By the horn toad. This don't look so good to me.
But what's he pointing the gun at? It can't be us, or we wouldn't be able to see the barrel.
Yeah, let me take another look. He's aiming that gun at the cabin, Patsy. That's what.
Gosh, Pinky, do you suppose he could see the door?
No, there's a big tree right there. All that fella's are doing is being sure that no one comes out into the open.
What are you looking at now?
I'm looking for something I'm pretty sure to find.
What is it, Pinky?
In a minute, we're going back into the cabin, Patsy. But ain't no use telling you more, 'cause she's liable to get worried.
Okay, but you didn't tell me what you were looking for.
Now, listen, Patsy. If there's one fella covering the cabin from that side, there's probably some more from the other side.
Gee, I never thought of that.
What we got to look for is the most likely other places where a guard would be posted.
Look back this way, Pinky. See that clump of bushes?
Yeah, I see 'em. And I'll lay 10 to 1 there's something there, too.
There. I saw something moving.
Yeah, so did I, too.
Now I see. There's a man standing up, but his head and shoulders are hidden.
You're sure right. And what a shot. Why, I could pick him off just as easy.
Do you think you should?
No, I guess not. It might start something we couldn't finish. Then again, it ain't giving the critter a chance.
Pinky.
Yeah, Patsy.
This is terrible. I'm not thinking of us. I'm thinking of Red and Chuck. When they come down to land, they won't see any other planes, so they'll think it's all right. But after they land, when they jump out, oh, Pinky, I can't bear to think of it.
I'm way ahead of you, Patsy. We're all in the tightest spot we've ever been.
In the meantime, Captain Midnight, with Chuck and Senor Pareda in the rear cockpit, has been flying toward the south, following Pareda's directions. But suddenly, Chuck sees a black plane pursuing them, and Captain Midnight makes a vertical left turn down a narrow valley. Then, obeying Pareda's shot, Captain Midnight turns vertically right into a rocky canyon. Listen as Chuck explains.
We've lost them, Red.
Bravo. I did not think you could do it.
We won't be able to continue if this canyon gets any narrower.
It does not. I have been through it many times.
Well, keep a sharp watch behind, Chuck.
I am. Please and beacons, we've done it.
Oh, wait a minute. Did you see that black plane?
Yeah, he continued down that narrow valley. We've given him the slip.
Good enough. We'd be at a disadvantage in a narrow place like this.
Gee, we sure haven't got very much room. Our wingtips aren't missing the canyon walls by more than 25 feet.
The canyon will not become any smaller, I assure you. Very soon now we will come out.
Oh, wait. I think I see the mouth right ahead.
It sure is dark down here. Kind of gives one a spooky feeling.
See, it is very dark. But soon we come out.
There's the opening. But almost out.
Now, El Capitan Midnight, you must go up. You must climb the stairs until they have it.
Okay, I'll open the throttle and stick her nose up.
How high do we have to climb?
Not much more, because we are making the ascension very fast. We must go over the mountain top on our right.
Well, that won't take long. We're almost there now.
Gosh, then. We're going up just like a balloon. I know this engine isn't that powerful.
Remember what I told you about air currents in the mountains, Chuck? We're in a powerful updraft.
Now, we are on top.
Say, Chuck, look at that.
Chimney cricket. There's the lake bed Senor Pareda told us about.
And it's as perfect a landing field as I ever saw.
The surface looks as hard as a rock.
Yes, and even, too. That's what I like about it.
You can land the airplane, El Capitan?
You bet I can. You don't find many places like this.
That is good.
All right, get set back there. I'm going to put the wheels down.
Watch it, Senor Pareda.
Bravo! That is a fine landing.
Well, there's no need going way out in the middle. I'm going to slap on the brakes and stop here.
Are we safe here, Senor Pareda?
Yes, of that I am sure.
Good, then I'll cut the engine. We may need all the gas we've got. Now, come on. Let's get out, Chuck, and stretch our legs. Huh?
I'm out. Oh, here, let me help you, Senor Pareda.
Thank you.
Well, how do you feel, senor?
Still a little weak, but very much better.
Do you think some of your men are up here?
On the bank of this lake, in that direction, there is a spring of water. Among the trees behind is a hunting lodge. Many were the happy hours I spent with my father there. If my men are on these mountains, they will meet in the lodge at night.
You wish to stay here and wait for them, then?
Yes, I think that is best. Will you not wait with me?
No, I'm sorry, senor, but I don't believe that's possible. As I explained to you, we have friends waiting for us in that cabin on the land you leased to the Americans for mining.
Ah, that is so. Then you will go and bring them back here.
Yes, that's what we'd better do, Chuck. Ma and Patsy would be much safer here than there. I wonder how far that field is.
It can't be very far because we've been flying in the same general direction.
Well, how far away is that field, Senor Pereira?
It is not so far. On foot, you would go over that hill to the west and down the canyon.
Yes?
It would be about 6 or 7 miles.
Oh, gosh, that's swell. We can take off and be there in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
Then you will return at once?
Yes, senor. We will return in half an hour.
What? Oh, they play.
Chuck, look!
Blaze and beacons, this lake bed's nothing but a dried crust. Those fields are broken through into the mud. We're stuck, Red.
Well, Captain Midnight and Chuck made a landing all right, but will they ever be able to get out? And in the meantime, Patsy and Ma Donovan, together with the faithful Pinky Drake and Slim Poole, are hemmed in by a ring of steel. What will happen next? Tune in tomorrow to Captain Midnight. And now, just a friendly warning to every red-blooded young fellow and girl. If you love mystery and excitement, be sure you hurry and join the new 1940 Flight Patrol right away, because you certainly won't want to miss out on the thrilling adventure that's in store for every member. The great adventure that only the members of Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol can take part in. And, of course, you won't want to miss all those free gifts and prizes either. So have Mother or Dad drive you over to your Skelly service station tonight and get your free Junior Pilot's application card right away. Meantime, your Skelly man will send right in for your swell spinning propeller Medal of Membership, the secret medal that's packed so full of fascinating features that it's a regular one-man sideshow. And remember, it doesn't cost you a single penny. So see your Skelly man and join Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol tonight. Now, don't forget to tune in again tomorrow, same time, same station, for further transcribed adventures of Captain Midnight, brought to you by the Skelly Oil Company, Skelly Jobbers and Dealers. What can Captain Midnight do now? His plane is hopelessly mired in the dried lake, and he and his friends seem to be at Ivan Shark's mercy. Or are they? Be sure to listen tomorrow. Until then, this is Don Gordon, your Skelly man, saying goodbye and happy landing!
So, boys and girls, are you ready to sign up and get your membership with all Captain Midnight and all of his characters? That was Captain Midnight from 1940, and it was featured on WGN and a regional network before it actually got into the countrywide network for Ovaltine. And Bill McCracken, you're back with us. Speaking of Ovaltine and Captain Midnight, premiums.
Right, and of course, much of juvenile radio was focused on premiums of one kind or another, whether in this case it was membership into a group of boys and girls groups, or, as we'll see in the coming months here, more specifically oriented towards exactly things that boys and girls could send away for to get as a premium. The connection to our next program is the fact that Captain Midnight was about to be sponsored by Ovaltine. And it got to be sponsored by Ovaltine because the Ovaltine people, after 1940, stopped sponsoring Little Orphan Annie.
And Little Orphan Annie is in the news here recently because the comic strip in the newspapers was dropped.
So between that and the fact that there's an Ovaltine connection, that will be one of our 2 shows next month.
And the other one will be?
Well, sticking with the same idea of juvenile programs, hopefully our grown-up audience will appreciate a trip back to Smilin' Ed McConnell.
And we'll have Froggy the Gremlin to go with him?
All those good characters.
Next time on OTR from the Rockies. And as always, thanks to Bill Bragg and Walden Hughes, who make it possible for old-time radio from the Rockies to be heard here on Yesterday USA. Now, this is Fred Hobbs, your online host, saying goodbye and good radio. This is RHAC, the Radio Historical Association of Colorado.